I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, we have to take a vote both from the LPA and from the council to allow the members to be here via Zoom. So LPA got motion by Mr. Dunlap, seconded by Mr. McLean. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next is the town council. I will make a motion to approve Mr. Adderholt being via Zoom. Seconded by Vice Mayor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. We have one item for discussion that we will have public comment before, Nancy. It wasn't on here, but we're going to have public comment. But do you want to do before and after or just before?
As long as the public has an opportunity to comment on what you'll be reviewing, you can do it before, you can do it after, you can do it once, you can do it twice.
Okay. Is everybody okay with starting once? And if we have to do it twice at the end, would you?
If you'll remember, I sent you a message about this. I think if we can do it in chunks, I think it'll be the most expeditious way to go through this, and it will allow everybody to kind of get out of their system everything that needs to be said. So if we take element 1, element 2, and allow public comment during those elements, does anybody object to that?
I don't have any issue with it. John?
Good.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Great.
Okay. That's what we'll do then.
Thank
Everybody
you.
out there okay with it? They're just like, let's get going. Yeah. All right. Our first item for discussion is ordinance 2410, the comprehensive plan adoption. Chair Saracita, would you like to kick this off and kind of explain how we got here?
Yes, I'll explain how we got here, and I'd just like to thank you, Will, for your accommodation of this joint meeting and all the staff. And, as I kind of, my first reaction to this was, what's going on? And since the, what's going on, I've stepped back and just kind of thought about how we got here. So, the Cordino Group was hired in the middle of COVID in June of 2020. The town was wrestling with that. All the things that came with that. It was very much a different community in 2020 than it is today. 2020, it's COVID. We start this process with that particular town council. 2 years later, the town's wiped out. We get a new council. Hurricane Ian does its damage. And then another 2 years following in all of this process, we get 2 more hurricanes. So it has been a difficult challenge for this community to come together and do this planning. The outreach, I know I spoke with Jason one day and he said, we didn't get the outreach or the response that we were hoping with the outreach, even though we got some. And I thought, everybody's been digging themselves out of whatever their situation has been. But nevertheless, we still have deadlines to abide by. We've got work in progress here. And I think if we just go step by step, I think that most of the comments we're going to hear are in the future land use element. There are comments that I've gotten about, Frankie, I'm just going to tell you this so you'll since you're the director here, about punctuation and grammar and stuff like that, which I'm guessing when this goes through a final test, all of that would be corrected. But that was something that several people said, well, look on this page and look on this page. And that's not the kind of content I think we need to talk about today. So, but that's kind of where we are, how we got here. And I mean, we got here, it's been a long and winding road to this point. And I hope that today will go a long way to helping the council put this forward on the 1st.
Very good. With that, we'll get started with our first element, which is the vision. Does anyone have any issues with the vision, or would you like to have any comments on that, Madam Chair?
I'll have a comment.
Okay.
Frankie, I'm just going to talk to you and Jason because I know you guys are the ones that, when I read this, and I mean, there's some kind of ironic things like we're a town that has many transportation choices and easy to get around. I mean, this weekend proved that wasn't true, but and we know living here that's really a challenge. But there's just a kind of a tone here of, you talk about a beautiful community, it's peaceful and enjoying our natural resources, and then the sentence that is, while still being able to find good eats experiences, I don't know what those are, and music locally when one desires. To me, it's just awkward. It's awkward. I'd like somebody to take another shot at this. I don't know if anybody else agrees or if you all think, hey, that's great. It comes across honky tonky. Yes, yes.
Jason, do we know who came up with this wording, or was it just kind of a?
Oh, Ed's here.
Yeah, he was hiding.
Hey, you're going to be so glad to get rid of us, aren't you?
Well, it's been my pleasure to work with you all for the last several years. We come full circle on a lot of
We
items.
certainly
I
have.
first detected this from what was presented to you in June. We then took comment. I wrote down the comment of exactly what you guys wanted. You had very specific changes during that meeting. I made those changes. And where it was unclear, but you had very specific direction, I finagled some of the work based on your direction. So really, it comes from you all from that meeting at the end of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, as I read it, it seems like it was written during COVID when we all had buildings here, because it talks about, height and commercial intrusion into neighborhoods, and it still seems like we're talking about existing and not tearing down things, and, without the need for cars in the midst of peak season. Do we have something like that happening here, other than golf carts and bicycles? I don't know anything about that. Unnecessary building heights, stable neighborhoods established with urban designs in order to prevent tear downs. I'm like, have we not had a few tear
Jane, are
downs?
you moving into the future land use element?
Oh, sorry.
So does anybody else have any comment on the vision statement, or? is
The only
everyone-
thing I would add is we're putting it through the lens of sitting here today,
Mhm.
and it says vision at the top. So if it's supposed to leap the current circumstances and situation and be aspirational and purposeful about what we're trying to evolve to, then some of this fits in that kind of a context. If we're describing today and people read it and say, I want to go there because this is what it's like, it has a different thing. So I think there needs to be at least a second around. Are we really trying to talk about today? Or are we trying to talk about what we want to make sure happens going forward as these words represent our desires versus current situation?
Anything,
My-
Jim?
Yeah, my comment would be, when I read this, to me, it described what I feel. Obviously, I defer to people who've lived here much longer than I have. But the feeling and the aspirational vision of this town, I feel is captured, whether we can quibble over good eats versus fine dining, but I don't think that that's really what this town is.
Mhm.
It is good eats and live music and having some fun, and that's part of the culture that I think we need to make sure that we affirm.
Mhm.
So I don't know about, I mean, we got a lot of people around this table. Wordsmithing every sentence is
Yeah,
probably not what we should be doing.
Not what we should, no,
We should
absolutely not.
be focusing on, are there any big, I don't really like what this is opening the door to or shutting the door on, and focus on those types of
Mhm.
issues as opposed to
Mhm.
editing for grammar or preferred language.
If I could just add, I think it's our vision is a sense of community, right? Like this is a community of homesteaders, a community of vacationers, a community of part-year residents,
Small business.
yeah, small businesses. And so to the extent we could somehow capture the sense of community and the memories that are created in that community, I don't think it's just about what we're doing now, because we're obviously rebuilding now. And we certainly have an opportunity now that we didn't have in 2020 with respect to tear downs and other things. But so to me, it's about community. And I think there's a good chance we could still maintain that same community we had before. It feels like, we're kind of moving more towards a vacation spot, Disney World. I don't want to say Disney, but more of a entertainment attraction island than maybe where we were before. But I think we have to find a way to capture the essence of both, because we are all and have been residents here. We all have, memories here where we've been part of the community, either as a vacationer or because the way you become a resident here is at some point you are a vacationer, you are a visitor, and you have to have an experience here that is, and a sense of community to want to live here.
Agreed.
John, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think to go line by line and try to wordsmith this would be counterproductive.
It would be.
We would be here for days to try to get through that. The vision, although very important, I don't know that it's as important as the nuts and bolts as you get into this. I have not ever seen one person come up and say, well, the vision says in any project that's come forward, right? Usually it's 4A or, it gets down into the nuts and bolts. So I agree with your sentiment that the wordsmithing, over the next 2 weeks, if people want to send in suggestions, we can certainly look at those. If there's some edits that maybe you want as far as texting, we can look at those and have that discussion on the first. But I think today, I agree, John, we should just focus on each element and what is in there. If there's issues with consequences or try to get through what we think, try to see around the corner, if you will. Are we good to go ahead?
Yeah, I'd like to add, thank you, Mayor. I love the comments that you had. I think one thing we might add is the generations to come. We want to continue this on and on. And if I may, I would like to make a swipe at this and send it on later. Just the high level vision that the folks.
Great. Thank you. How about we take some public comment on section 1 on the future land use map?
On section
And-
2, you mean?
Or in section 2. Well, they could include section 1 too if they want, but that might be an easier way to start that.
Sounds good.
Doug, did you want to say anything?
No, ma'am, that's all well said.
It's nice to see you.
Nothing to add. Hope you can hear me okay.
We can hear you just fine. How about you, Jim?
Not at this time. Thank you, Anita.
It's nice to not see you there, but to hear your voice.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, public comment on future land use element or the vision. Bill?
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, there's a, like we talked about, a lot of grammatical things I think is important to clear up, though. Some things are like the 1978 coastal construction line is called 3 or 4 different things throughout the document. If it's a legal document, the legal terms should be consistent throughout. And there's a few examples of that. There's some things that make substantive changes, and I'll just kind of concentrate on those. One thing I'm kind of curious about is they call it non-residential FAR. The implication seems to be that commercial space does not contribute to FAR. That would be, I'd just be interested to clarify that. There's also one line, let's go from an FLU 1A3. It says a town should protect residential neighborhoods from intrusive commercial activities. They went from shall to should, which is a softer term. I'm not quite sure, is that a policy to say that we're allowing some commercial intrusion into residential neighborhoods? There is some in specific areas like in FLU, I'm sorry, jumping around a little bit. FLU 1B2, it says encroachment into the adjacent low density residential neighborhood should be prohibited. It's only in that one zone where they make that strong of a statement. There was a section about how in 4B1, where it said that overbuilding, what the town is overbuilt, and we have to be conscious of that. That was removed entirely. Let me see. like you said, it's a big section. Probably most of the changes are in this one section. In FLU-1-C4, there's a change, and this happens in a few different places where it changes from 2 to 3 floors above flood throughout the different areas. Now, this seems to me one of the first directions we gave to the group when they came was that we don't want to have any more density or height by right from changes to the comprehensive plan. It seems to me that changing this, even if it's done in the for the sake of consistency with the different sterile commercial zones, I think that it seems to me clearly to be an expansion of floors and density. The other thing I found was really interesting, and I think it can be positive, but I think it's got to be maybe hashed out a little more, is the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit. That's FLU-1-C-7. Just basically says that they're 0.5 density units without any kind of definition or conditions. Later on in other parts of the document, they start talking about those conditions, but it's not in this section. And that to me seems a little vague because it doesn't say the limitations on uses, on sizes, or any of that kind of thing. And I think with that, my 3 minutes are up.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Terry?
You're lucky dad. I only had 3 minutes. I didn't bring all my notes with me. Good morning, Terry Kane for the record. I want to thank you all for having this meeting. First off, I want to thank the council, LPA, and the staff for going through this yet again. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it, and I think everyone does appreciate that. Some areas of the comprehensive plan are great. FLU is one that you're going to find I think we need the most meat. Like I said, I only picked out my top few because I knew I only had a few minutes. So just like what Bill just said, FLU-1-C-4, building height. Again, they deleted, or whatever you want to call it, scratched out the 2-story height and added the 3-story height throughout the plan. It's throughout. And I think it should remain the 2-story. This is just not my ideas. This was 63% of the population that just voted because it wasn't a popularity contest. It was a policy recall that we had. On FLU 1-B-1 map adoption, when you look at our FLU map, you will see that there is a recreation area and we no longer have, I guess we didn't have before, I was trying to go back and forth, an environmentally critical area. Usually Bowditch Point, the beaches, Little Estero Island were environmental critical zones at least for, and so I think we need a future land use map that has environmentally critical areas for preserves, reserves, and beaches. The recreation layer takes a layer of protection off of those wildlife areas. FLU 1-B2H-10 wetlands. I have a question here. Why is there a density attached to wetlands in a conservation area? I don't understand that. As you get to know me, I'm all about the environment. And I think, let's see, they're all the FLUs I brought with me today. There are many more. As we said, if you go through this section, it's pretty intense. I'm sorry, I didn't bring my other notes with me. So please review it again. And I thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. Really
Thank
do.
you, Terry. Anyone else? No one else? Okay, thank you.
Sonia, I think, as everybody is, I think understands, this is probably going to be the most discussed one out of all of it. Maybe we go each policy one by one to make sure we get it as close as we can as far as what everybody's vision or what issues they see. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I think this one in particular is probably the most important that we spend the most time on because it does have the biggest implications. You okay with that, Eddie and Jason? Okay. Let's start with the first one, the objective for FLU 1A, small town character. Are there any major issues that anyone has with that they'd like to discuss? I'll let you get back to the.
You're right.
Jim, out there in TV land, you can't see it, or maybe you can see it, but I've gone down the Adderholt Forest path because my battery is dying on my computer. So you're here in spirit,
What's
my
the
friend.
Adderholt Forest?
So he always used to
I
have
do- I
the
do
agenda,
too.
the
I do
agendas.
too.
Yeah, he likes the
Yeah.
paper.
I think that
I'm good, thank you.
the statement maintaining the small town character is important to folks. Of course, that definition becomes relative as the community changes, but I think the feel will remain.
Okay.
You know, there was a question someone sent me about, oh, if I could just, well, maybe it's not. Never mind.
Well, if it comes to you, we can always come
Thanks, Dana.
revert back to it. All right, then we'll move on to policy FLU 1A1. There was one line that was scratched out, but everything else was added. Does anyone have any major changes to that or any issues with that section?
Jim asked me a question earlier. It says Villa Santini. That's Santini Marina Plaza currently. It's had a lot of incarnations name-wise, and I just wonder if we shouldn't identify it the same all the way through the plan. Because currently it's called Santini Marina Plaza.
Okay.
I don't know
We
if
can
that
make that,
matters.
yeah, it generally doesn't matter, but if you want to make it Centini, whatever you want to name it, that's a very easy change right there. I would just, go ahead and name it the way you would like to name it.
What do you think,
Yeah,
Jim?
it's,
You brought that up earlier.
I think it should be consistent. It should be correct.
Consistent and correct.
That's where I
I
am.
agree.
So what should it be called now?
What is it? What's it currently called now? Is it?
It's called Santini Marina Plaza.
Okay.
I don't have any issues with keeping it that. Does anyone have any?
No.
Okay.
Anything else in that section? All right. Policy FLU 1A2. Any major comments to the added verbiage in that?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to policy FLU 1A3. Any comments on that?
This is one of those locations where shall was changed to should. Don't know if it matters here that much, but protecting residential neighborhoods from intrusive commercial activities was the mantra of the incorporation of this town. So, I would err back to we shall protect residential neighborhoods, because should is like, well, if you feel like it.
Nancy, what?
And quite frankly, it was something that we,
This is Doug Ekman. You can even say the town will protect residential neighborhoods.
Or will.
Go ahead, Eddie.
yeah, it was, to be quite frank, this was something that was provided to us against staff advice, that direction. So originally my advice was to remain shall instead of should in this case.
I think
We
you're
were
right.
told to change it.
Oh.
Would we want to go back to it? We're good
Yes.
either way. I will help you with this, but that what worded based on the instruction I received and counter to staff advice. So-
Nancy, legally, what's a better word or stronger word, I guess? that we-
Well, if shall was the original language that was there,
Yeah, then we recommend again
Then-
changing it.
we would be making it more permissive or more interpretive, easier if we use should.
So
more
it should remain
aspirational.
shall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was shall initially.
It was
So we're
shall.
not making it by this change, just, we all know about
Yeah,
SB 180, right?
Yeah.
So we're not making it more restrictive or overly burdensome because it was existing language that was in our code.
Yep.
I think that's a very important point.
I to say I find the word should kind of ambiguous.
Right.
So could we just say across the entire document, if it was shall, keep it shall? Because you raise a good point, Nancy. If you go to should and it's more, you're never going to go back.
Correct.
You're never going to be able to go back the other way.
We would, from our end, double check for you on if that's the general direction. We can change everything back to shall, with the exception of where you may have rules that are loosening up and create internal conflict. So after we run through these rules, we will, specifically, we would probably just go back and say change everything to shall, except where you say should is where staff had done a review and said, hey, you might not want shall because you introduced this other policy and now you're creating internal conflict, which you don't want to do. So that would be my suggestion there.
Do you off the top of your head, Eddie, know a particular example of that? Because I'm trying to think of what that would be.
Well, not off the top of my head, but for example, one that might come up would be if you decide to keep a regulation that allows you to build on the second floor, and then you actually have a shall be a freeboard of 3 feet. Those are mutually incompatible because
Yeah.
shall at 3 feet doesn't really give you that 10 feet for the second floor that we're aspiring to and what the public had mentioned in their, in those workshops.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have to tread carefully on some of those.
So then it goes on, and I think it's important to shall and should here. The end of the sentence, that no, none, zero of any kind, negative impacts on adjoining properties result.
Yeah.
So who puts that through what filter, including a shadow all the way to pick your no? That one's more dangerous to me or more challenging to me than the should and shall.
Because it's
Because
subjective.
it's absolutely clear, and that case can be made for and against in every single circumstance.
Sounds like a public benefit, huh? Not
Well,
defined.
yeah, it sounds like a lawsuit is what it sounds
Well, that's
like.
what it is, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it
It's
sounds
the eye of the beholder thing, and that's where it gets dangerous and muddy.
like. What do you think about that, Eddie? Do you know what Jim's saying? The last sentence in 1A3, these regulations should incorporate criteria for determining compatible home occupation uses and standards to ascertain that no negative impacts on adjoining properties result. What are those negative impacts? I think that is complicated. I didn't highlight that, but it's a good
It's a
point.
good one.
I would defer to the city attorney on the legal implication. I would say that from a planning perspective, based on what you have in your land development regulations, it's no different than the criteria you currently review. It's pretty standard text.
Well,
You
I don't like that
should,
answer.
No,
I don't like that answer at all.
right, so,
The fact you take
you
into
you can take it or leave it on this one, honestly, but
No,
yeah, from a
no.
legal standpoint, I defer to the city attorney's office.
Are we losing anything if we remove the sentence? What part
At
of the
least the
sentence
last-
do we have to have?
Or at least the last half of it that has
Mm-hmm.
that
Standard.
and standards to
Yeah.
ascertain that no
I
negative
think that
impacts.
has to be if we're gonna
Yeah.
operate, and then the dialogue becomes real. I think it becomes pertinent to the moment, situation, project,
Mhm.
and not a blanket statement where we could have challenges endlessly.
Well, you have to define it. It's just that simple.
You'd have to
Yeah.
define
You
it.
have to define it.
There you go.
A height of
Perhaps,
30 feet or a color of
Purple.
hue, purple or pink, whatever. I mean.
Oh, not to say anything about purple, Mike.
um,
His house is purple.
Oh,
So. to
Madam
Maria-
Chair, if I may, sorry.
Go ahead. Well, I was
Um,
going to say that if you want to minimize, you could say, and standards to ascertain, to minimize impacts on adjoining property results. If you use something like that, it puts it back into the discretion of the LPA as far as your deliberations and then ultimately the town council, as opposed to saying no negative impacts. I mean, that might be
Yeah, so,
a language.
yeah, I think the attorney and I were on similar pages. What I was about to suggest was to, compatible
minimize.
home and standard to mitigate impact of the proposed use or development would be one way to think about it, because that way it gives you an angle to say, there are going to be impacts. If there's anything negative, you're going to be able to mitigate and point to that from an LPA and council standpoint.
What about recognize, Nancy? In other words, that gives no quantification, but just recognizing the impacts or.
And that's fine as well. And again, your comp plan, I was good. Your comp plan is more of the, as Jim would say, the 30,000 look down. The more detail you have in your comp plan, the more difficult it is to actually implement it.
Right.
exactly.
It is easier
You got
to,
policy statements.
Yeah.
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 I would note that because you already have the word for determining at the beginning of that, you're already recognizing that there because you're using criteria to determine. Therefore, that the criteria to determine is intended to recognize that this is, that part of your review process. So that, you want to change that, or that's where that change would be. Instead of determining, it would be to recognize, but determining if they're, you criteria to determine exactly stronger language than just recognizing that they're there. Because you're running through a kind of like a checklist and like professionally based review from staff to provide the advice to the LPA and the council in that point.
What was the reaction to Dan's recommendation of removing the last half of the sentence?
Well, the reason I bring that up is because, it's talks specifically about home occupation.
Exactly.
Well, is an Airbnb considered a home occupation? And is you having a swimming pool that people enjoy till 11 o'clock, is that a negative impact on the neighbors? I mean, it's a lot of open-endedness here that could cause a lot of conflict between neighbors based on just what exactly is a home occupation use.
And
That
so,
is
Incompatible.
that is always determined in your code, like in terms of your zoning code, the uses that are listed in your code. You want to keep it broad and then determine in your code because these uses may change, new uses may occur. That's why I generally recommend you going overly prescriptive on what compatible and home occupation uses are, because it's applied code of ordinances and applied zoning where that really should matter.
Yeah, I go back to just, you can almost end it at the end
Yeah.
of uses. I mean, it's
But
Let nature take its course with the process we have in place.
then it reverts it back to the land development code and the determination gets made there.
May I ask a question
Yeah.
in relation to this whole topic? So what I'm hearing from residents is what happened or what will happen to what has been designated in the past, the quiet zone part of Fort Myers Beach. I'm hearing a lot of uproar about that, specifically for people who moved from other areas of the beach to the quiet zone.
Right.
To have that.
I think we'll get into that as we go further along into the future land use
Okay.
elements.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a
that-
pretty
That'll
big topic.
arise.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may, to Councilmember Link's question, this were compatible is your key word to link to in your comprehensive plan and then determine in your code. If you want to preserve a quiet zone, then you as the council have to have the discretion there to judge on the basis of compatibility. You have to enable your ability to judge on the basis of compatibility by putting that word compatible within your comprehensive plan at the binding trust aspect for which you are making a determination. How you determine how it's compatible or not, it's applied in the code, but you need the basis to judge that in the first place. That we have the authority to say that it's compatible or not compatible at the LPA and council.
Mhm.
And that's where that thought process comes from.
Thank you for helping me through this learning curve.
So Nancy, are you comfortable with being able to end it at the end of uses, or do you think it needs to be more in depth?
No, I think it's fine. I think it's fine to end it there because your LDRs will bring up the standards.
I support that.
yep, I do too.
Good one.
Anyone?
Yep.
Have any? Okay, you got that change, Eddie?
Yep, that's good.
If I could just make sure I am getting it right, just like, when we went through an hour of work meeting with the vision in June, so some of the verbatim in here, I want to sure because we're in such a tight timeline that we want to make sure we get that right. So these regulations should incorporate criteria for determining compatible home occupation uses and.
Period.
Period.
Yeah, period. All right.
Period.
Can we help you with that?
No and.
Yeah, no and. Okay, that is
Period.
much more
That's what my
clear.
thought is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm like running through.
That's
good.
great.
That's good.
All right, anything else? We'll move on to the next one. All right, next is FLU 1A4, discussions on the changes proposed there. Seems pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
No issues?
No.
All right, we'll move on to FLU 1A5. Any questions or comments on that one?
Do we have any areas where parking garages are going to be built that could be built?
Well, remember, this is aspirational.
Future.
Yeah.
Explore.
Well, I think this is where the land development code then comes in. We have things in our land development code that are preventing the building of parking garages that we're going to have to address after this is done. Am I correct in saying that?
It's going to be fun too.
Well, yes. The buffers and all that kind of stuff that are in the land development code right now that are restricting the building pretty much of any parking structure.
I'd say we are doing that where we're putting a parking structure in the flood area, right, underneath of a building. There's a couple across the street here, right, that were built.
Technically, yeah. I'm just talking about just a specific parking garage.
Yeah.
I think
Oh,
that's
by
what,
itself, yeah.
as a standalone,
Right, okay.
I think that's
It
what
seems
this,
aspirational.
it is.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Quite.
Which is never mind.
all right, then we'll move on to FLU 1A5. No,
Oh,
I already
that's
did, I just did that
six.
one. Sorry, 1A6. Any questions or comments on that?
Nope.
You want to get a copy of? No, all right.
Because this is talking about protection of the shorebirds and the shoreline.
Yes,
and everything
wetlands.
else. And we have shall, yes.
Right.
This is where we would, from staff standpoint, encourage you to make the change because it's the basis by which you're going to hook onto when you have accretion, when you have those new dunes, when you have to look at the fact that you have split parcel and then can do an overlay perhaps in your zoning for where you have the conservation that edges along the residential areas. That's a major concern from where we were from staff standpoint in evaluating your comprehensive plan because you have split parcels. And those are very split zoning and split land uses. And those are, from a more legal standpoint, very difficult to administer. So this creates one of the first hooks in there to say you're going to preserve those, but you have to determine your code how. Part of the code and how you do how, then at that point it's say, you know what, I have a property that's the very edge of it should be conservation, but I can't have it zoning because I'm not platting this parcel a certain way. So I need to rezone and put an overlay onto those properties a different way in order to protect that conservation aspect. That this is kind of the beginning of that you need in there.
Okay. Any other comments?
No.
All right. 1A7, nothing changed in that. I assume
No.
no one has any issues with that one.
No.
FLU 1A8, that's a whole new added section. Are there any comments or suggestions on that one?
No?
One thing it doesn't specifically call out is the fact of perhaps doing the barrier, yeah.
I think that's, yeah, I think it's pilot programs to adapt sea level rise and storm surges. I don't know if that would, if we need to be specific to a wave
I'm fine with
mitigation
it
wall.
The way it is, but it's such a big topic of conversation.
Yeah, I think this covers that whole idea of trying to. Anything else?
No.
All right. FLU 1A9, no changes to that. I assume no one has any issues with that one. 1A10, just a couple of minor changes. Anybody have any issues with that? The changes, there is one section that was added at the end. The rest of it looks like it's just
Yeah,
text
that's
amendments.
It's to ensure consistency with the other portions of your comprehensive plan that wasn't there before regarding concurrency. It needs to be in your future land use for that to be active.
Okay, then we'll move on. FLU 1A11. Most of that was crossed out with the answer. Basically, you're just condensing the wording is what it looks like to me. There's
Yes.
not a huge change in what you can or cannot do there.
Yeah, there's no really effective change in this regard. It's extremely wordy and cumbersome to read through that several times, and we're like, there's an easier way to state this.
All right, then we'll move on to FLU 1A12. It looks like you just got rid of the duplication
Yes.
of
that's what it is.
what moved it up.
Right.
Not, I know we didn't want to go into grammar, but it should be provide, not provides.
Might as well, we're right here.
Well, if you see something, you might as well throw it
Yeah,
out.
just,
Save their
just
time.
flag it and we can bring it back.
So just a question, if I may, for the expert. These next couple three started a process of calling out the LDC. as the governing doc for specific details? Is there a reason that fits there and is not implicit in everything we're doing throughout the comp plan in this particular section? Why does land development code have to be called out as being the governing doc on that if it isn't called out in the other sections?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
See how land development codes shall provide detailed regulations that distinguish, et cetera?
Right.
Why is that in the comprehensive plan?
Well, that's
Just
from
so I
your
understand.
original text, and so I just also noticed the grammar from your original text that we didn't take out that S there. Normally, it's there to just provide guidance that you need to. It's a specific issue that you need to address within your land development code. Not that it's the only issue, but
Okay.
in some areas, it's just putting extra emphasis. Did it from your
Yeah.
original text, so your original
Cool.
text that you know.
As long as
it's a
it belongs
specific-
there
Yeah,
and not other places.
To me, I read it as
Right.
though there was nothing in there before
Oh,
that referred, because there was always,
oh.
when it came to heights and
Right.
those kind of things, people didn't
Oh.
understand that it was the land
Right.
development
Yeah.
code that dictates that, not the comp
That's a
plan.
distinction.
So that's how I read this, is this was
Okay,
just
helpful.
added language to let people know where they need to go to find that information.
Specific to this type of use, hotels, motels, or transient residential, they usually fall under a special category, and including how it's defined under state statutes as well. And sometimes with some preemptive aspects, for example, you see aspects of vacation rental being preempted, you see other aspects of how it's defined in state statutes. Because this type of land use is regulated differently in statute with specific definition, it also behooves most communities to kind of think about that separately within their code and for them to call it out as well.
Helpful, thank
So
you.
that's from a structural standpoint from your original comprehensive plan that carried forward.
This is Doug Ekman. I've got just one comment, if I may, and not the wordsmith again, but I would say the land development code shall provide regulations that distinguish. I don't think the word detailed is useful or helpful there. The fact that you're providing regulations that distinguish hotels and motels from residential uses and other types of lodging, I think is a more direct way to say it.
Without,
Concerning the word detailed, it's sort of,
what-
well, you know, was it detailed or not detailed, you know, ambiguity.
without that distinction, you're regulating that transient residential, so no different than Airbnbs and so forth, and clear that they are different within your code right now. So if you choose to take that out, that's perfectly okay, but you also have to amend your code accordingly to make everything transient residential, whether it's hotels and whatnot. So that's the distinction that you have in there, specific for that reason.
Makes sense.
Can I just make a general comment? And I am trying to, I mean, I have a planning background, so I'm really being reserved here. Your current land development code does have a section, and it's section 34-91, which gives the town council the authority to interpret sections of the comp plan that might have some ambiguity in them. And that interpretation would then basically be, my recommendation is that we codify it in the form of an ordinance. And then when your plan is amended subsequently, that interpretation gets rolled into it. If there's a intent to change that interpretation, then the comp plan does need to be amended. So as we're going through this, if there are some ambiguities, it might be okay to leave them in there to get through this process, because if it does become an issue, we could, under that section of your LDR, come back and ask, you know, LPA, what do you think this means? Council, what do you think this means? So that process and mechanism is in place. So if we don't get it perfect, it's
allows
okay.
flexibility.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eddie, what do you think of that? You kind of nodded like, yes.
Yes, what the attorney is saying is correct. I would posit one caveat to that. The caveat that I provide with my client is this: consistency of findings. So yes, you are subject to interpretation, but if you find one type of finding and you're finding the fact for one property and you do not, for good reason, do that for another property, then you run into issues down the line at the community where someone can come back and say, why do you interpret this differently for us without valid or proper reason? So there's a balance here, right? When it comes to the ambiguity, there is an aspect where you get to a certain point where it's categorical, and there may be still some ambiguity within those categorical aspects. Sometimes that's clarified by state law, as we saw in the recent passage of 1730 with the Live Local Act update, where the state came in and clearly defined what commercial and industrial meant as far as Live Local Act. And other areas, then it's subject to your interpretation. But ultimately, it comes back to if you are being consistent in your application of your code, and equally so among the different applicants.
And I agree with that, because my comment was that when an interpretation is made, if it gets to that level, then it would be codified in an ordinance. And so the ordinance then would have to be applied equally and not in any type of arbitrary or discriminatory manner. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, we are.
And
And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
Commissioner is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you say, John? James, I'm sorry.
I said it also sets precedent.
Yeah.
You interpret ambiguity in a certain way, then the next guy comes along and said, hey, you already did this, why am I different?
Right.
Because each property is different.
But precedent isn't necessarily based on the property, it's
That's
on the
right.
interpretation
Yeah.
of how it was
Okay.
applied.
Okay.
And this clause that the attorney is always, it's saying it's also important for any community as well, particularly in a community like ours here with its rebuilding. You know, notwithstanding the fact that technology is changing and different uses come into play, you know, life changes, right? In 5 years, there may be something new that comes along. But you also have a certain level of potential reinvestment in the community, and someone might come up with this cool idea or an idea that you want to be able to evaluate on your own terms. So some guideposts are important. Some ambiguity there is also important, with the ability under your code to continue and make those interpretations that make fit.
So you need
Good job.
the flexibility
Yeah.
a bit in the
Right.
comp plan, instead of being really, really precise. And I think that was kind of a comment made as well. The other thing I want to just put out there so everybody keeps it in mind, and then I'll try to be reserved a bit. This will come back to council on Monday. Today is Tuesday and we have a holiday. So staff will be working very, very quickly in order to perhaps have a list of all these changes so that it could be reviewed on Monday. The agenda for Monday has already gone out with this document.
We would know from an administrative standpoint, the people who are formatting this are on Thanksgiving leave right now. I actually canceled my leave to be here today.
Thank you.
You know, I appreciate you all and your
Thank you.
trust and confidence over the years. But you know, what we would have to do as a matter of record during the public hearing is the changes that we have today, we would have to you would have to approve, and because it's always published, that's the other important aspect that the city attorney pointed out. We would have to approve with the prescribed amendment listed. We will run through and make scrivener that as needed for the final thing, but it's actually the content that's important here. And those are specific procedures that we have to follow on Monday based on the changes that you want today.
All right.
Okay, carry on.
Good to move
Mayor?
on from that. Yes.
I'm sorry, as a
That's okay.
newbie, I have another question, and I
Sure.
don't know if it's the appropriate time, but thinking aspirationally, I'm not sure the acronym begins with a C, but the discount we get based on how resilient we are. Does any of that impact our vision in the comp plan, or would that all be in the LDC? So if we want to strive for 25%, we do these things. If we want to strive for 50%, we do these things. Would they have to be included in the comprehensive plan or not?
It's a good question. I get he probably would be able to answer that the best. My initial it would be that no, it doesn't have to be, that the land development code would cover that, but I could be wrong.
It goes both ways. Sometimes folks put it in the comprehensive plan because they want to be stringent about it and have maximum cap. You want a bit of ambiguity, you can come about with some exceptions. Like there are some things that are required in the statutes. So in those cases, you know, I wouldn't recommend that, but in other cases.
I've always
it's
found,
good,
at least my opinion, that the more options that you have, and you know, this, if you get too strict, as has been said, you really are hamstringing
restricting
yourself to
yourself, right.
options or potential options down the road. And that's why you have the backstop of the land development code. to be able to do those types of things.
So if in the next 20 years, we wanted to be more stringent, we wouldn't be limited because it was missing here.
You would
That's
just,
all
you
I'm
would just,
looking
yeah,
for.
you would just adjust the
Right,
land
you're-
development code.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I'm certain, I don't want to,
Yeah.
Eddie,
Yeah.
he's got it in there because I remember reading, you've got some very general language related to your policy concern that you've raised.
Right.
And then the other thing I would just put out there is you do have a strategic planning session that's coming up. And that is somewhat the implementation perhaps of some of the things that are in the land use arena.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think there's also an inventory of items that go into the calculus of that discount that we can put as strict as we want in here. If we can't physically through parks and other things meet the criteria, you could kill yourself trying to get there and get no impact. So
Right.
Well, and I think you
Right.
just give
Just be
more
reminded of that.
ammunition to
That's why
the
Sam Bell has
interpretation
it.
of the federal government, how they could
Exactly.
interpret things.
We're already at whatever we can do without putting another section of land on and having a park.
right.
So
Sure.
why bind ourselves to something we can't achieve and
28 times
give
square or
them more
something.
restrictions on us?
Right. Oh,
Might be
thank you.
wrong.
That's very helpful for me.
All right, if there's that, we'll move on to the next one. This one's pretty straightforward. 13 is just, anybody have any issues with 13? That seems pretty straightforward.
Get it done.
All right. Next one is 1A14. The only comments I have on this one is, to me, this reads as though it's telling us we have to basically come up with some sort of, not necessarily point system, but something that provides an incentive for development through an ordinance. To me, that takes away flexibility.
I disagree, Mayor. Here's why. There's all that ordinance that you will evaluate and adopt as appropriate. If you do not find that public benefit ordinance are appropriate for your community, you do not have to adopt it. The key there is as appropriate there. However, this policy is in there because for the past 4 years, you've had me come
talking
before
about it.
you no less than 8 times to talk about public benefit ordinance, as you have had Sarah when you were still here and Jason on staff. So because there's no conclusion, but we want to keep the door open to you being able to adopt one in the future, that's why I said you'll evaluate. But it doesn't require you to adopt one if you don't find it appropriate.
8 times, really?
At
I
least 8
thought it was
times.
probably more.
It'll
Okay.
at least 8 times. It's probably close to do a dozen.
Dozen.
We had a lot of extra meetings
Yes.
that were not on our scope.
I mean, I'm not going to die on the vine in this one either, but to me, it just seems that it's opening a door that you're not going to be able to close later.
Mayor,
It's the
kind of
word
agree with
will.
What's that?
It's the word will
Yeah.
It is the
that's
word.
there.
My
Shall
concern
or
is,
should,
back to Senate
could.
Bill
Yeah.
180,
Yeah,
is maybe not this council, maybe not the next council, maybe the next council decides that they want to put in a point system or an ordinance that allows, now you can't undo that. You can't take that away. So although this says as appropriate, once it's there, you're not going to be able to take
Well,
it back.
but you would, Dan, because
How?
it was because it would be an ordinance, and an ordinance is legislative in nature,
How about,
creating it. So
yeah.
you could uncreate the ordinance.
I
How
don't know
about
that you
this,
could.
Mayor?
but it,
You can make it less.
Mayor,
Yeah.
if I make a suggestion to help move it along, how about we'll evaluate a may adopt as appropriate? And that way, I mean, I
That
would
still
say,
makes
given
it
the
more
conversations
discretionary.
you've all had so far, you have always been continuously evaluating this for the last 5 years. And you can probably continue to do so long after I'm gone. So I don't think having that policy or not, you guys are still gonna have that discussion. May adopt doesn't constrain you to actually having to adopt, but if you find that you're in best interest at some point, you're not precluded.
I don't know if that solves my concerns, but I get what you're saying. Again, I just see once you, if someone may down the road enact an ordinance that says, if you build a 200 square foot bathroom on the roof, we'll allow you to go 5 stories taller. I'm just using crazy things that out.
Yes.
They may decide to do that 10 years from now, but once it's there, now precedent's going to set that everybody's going to say, well, I can now do this to get this. And maybe that's not what the vision will be 10 years or 20 years from now. To me, this just leaves unintended consequences that could come down the road.
If a developer can find a way to do something to get something, they'll do it. So,
To me, this provides another avenue, not
How
necessarily
you
just
get
for
it done.
development, but for
Mhm.
developers, but residential homes. I could see how this could.
Haven't
could
yet
play a
run
role.
through a public benefits ordinance for another community with part of an overlay. I can tell you that opt-ins are not as binding as giving something by right because you still retain that discretion. And that's why we didn't, put things for public benefit by right that as was originally, and we pushed back from staff standpoint from the conversations about 3 years ago, because you shouldn't be giving public benefits by right. They should be malleable and based on community need as they evolve, and also as market circumstances dictate. Because they are discretionary in nature and opt-in, you're not taking anything away by changing the guidepost on a public benefit program, so long as you don't make it retroactive to the ones you already granted. So that's the caveat there. So if you grant it, if you have an ordinance and someone comes in and you grant them that exchange and public benefit ordinance, you can't retroactively hammer them. You can still change it afterwards based on your parameters. It's just that, those we already granted are still, inactive or are active, and then the ones moving forward will be subject to the new rules. But that's, where that comes in. It's not the same as something by right. if
Sounds
that's
like we'll
the
disagree
concern.
on this, Mayor, but I personally think that I like the pressure that comes with definitions and clear communication on that. I think there ought to be more pressure on us to put some criteria around public benefits. I've authored documents that others have on that. So having this in there as a reminder that we have an obligation at least to attempt or to keep the conversation alive. I personally like that in our.
Yeah, it's a fair
comment.
point. No, I think that's a fair point. I'm not against coming up with ideas. I just want to make sure that once an idea is come up with, does it then bind the town to not be able to take that right away from someone? If I come in and I offer a public benefit that now ends up in an ordinance. Now, if I try to take that away and developer C comes along and says, wait a minute, you had it here. Now you've taken it away. You've restricted my ability to build what they had because you've now taken away the right that you gave them.
But the context,
That's my concern.
The context may be that whole part of the island or that situational
Could change.
environment. We need what we need to make that happen, or nothing for the rest of us is going to happen. So that may not be consistent with the second, third, or fourth request. I think the flexibility is inherent in the power of the town council, in my mind.
I agree.
Mayor, I want to be really clear for the LPA and the council. Any public benefit or you do, never term it as something you're giving by right.
Right.
It is an opt-in and it's within your council and your LPA discretion. It is discretion. I cannot stress that enough as a staff member, that a critical piece of advice on how you term it in a meeting. I'll be gone at some point, but hopefully you'll continue to have staff who will remind you that. You'll have
You may
staff
never be
remind you
gone,
that.
Eddie.
Yeah.
You may.
But, but that would be my advice. It's never by right.
But it's always by contract,
Yeah.
right? We have a development
Correct.
agreement,
It's by
and so there's a
contract.
legally binding contract, and only in that contract would that be allowed. In other words, would the ordinance be utilized?
Yeah, in that case, what it does when you have the type of ordinance like the one I just had to do a couple of months back, it provides the terminal parameters so that you can use that as guidepost, or you can say and have an easy to determine when someone comes in. Now they can still offer something else, and then as it is when your discretion as at the council and the LPA to review those with due diligence that you do for your other projects.
Changing the word shall to may would make this so that it's more permissive in nature and not an
demanding.
obligation.
Ah, good point.
So, but the word public benefits, I think later on, needs to be defined as a policy statement somewhere.
Absolutely.
And it is not. The word public benefits through this document needs to have some teeth put into it.
Right, agreed.
If I may interject one thing. The town has gone through this a few years ago with public benefit and staff going through its first development agreement. And we're struggling in negotiations of what is a public benefit. staff should never be put in that position. You know, as
Agreed.
policy
Agreed.
interpreters of the
Policy.
LPA and as
And
policy
yet here we are with
developers.
development agreements. That's exactly what you're doing.
But if,
It is, but it puts you in a very precarious spot.
Yes.
Because the suggestive part of it, we can come up and we can make that suggestion, but it may not fit the parameter of the policy which you're wanting to enact by granting that.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So-
I want to give, if you indulge me for a couple of seconds, a story that from when I was community development director. I sat up there and we had a development come in, and a council member, one of the commissioners, or there's a commission there, asked, "Oh, what are you going to give us for our library?"
Oh.
It was an illegal ask from the dais because they had no backing for it. We had no public benefits ordinance, and it was seen as coercive.
Oh.
The developer that will give you 40,000 and then turn around came to my office and said, well, we were coercing it during the public hearing. We had another instance where we had the same thing with the right of way. Guess what? That community just had to give back $500,000 of money because it was an illegal act from the dais. These guidelines are important because unless you tie certain things into concurrency or your public benefit, they may be seen as illegal acts when there's act from the dais during the public hearing.
A lot of
That's
illegal acts.
very important to remember.
Very good. All right. Like I said, I'm not going to die on the vine over this. I'm just trying to look around the corner and see that there's going to be some unintended consequences from this part of this comp plan, and we'll have to address those as they come up. But
Do we
you
want
make a
to
very
If we
valid
want
point.
to
change
update
from
the language
shall
today,
Yeah,
or-
it's
Yeah.
my comment.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Did you may instead of shall?
So the town may evaluate.
I think I had suggested may,
Yes.
may adopt as appropriate instead of shall be appropriate, yes.
So you
So-
will evaluate, but
Yes.
you may adopt.
There you go.
Yeah.
As appropriate could be criteria, general criteria that could be applicable.
Mm.
That's much better. Will evaluate and may adopt.
With criteria.
Well, As appropriate is fine.
Oh, as
That's how
appropriate,
I'm
okay.
interpreting your as appropriate.
Ah, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that is. But look how much.
Maybe
we
I need to
talked
stop
about.
putting question marks
I mean-
behind these. It is directing. All right. Are there any other? You got that change, Eddie?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? I think we beat that one to.
Nothing left.
Okay. FLU 1A15 variation regulations. Anyone have any heartburn over those?
I like that.
No, I think it's good too. All right. 1A16 small lots. Any heartburn over any of that?
And then
Okay. Gentlemen on the screen, you got any issues? Just jump in. Otherwise, we're gonna just keep moving. 1A, okay, 1A17 community development. No major changes there. Just looks like they added a couple words and enhances the.
Yep.
We'll go back to where there's no title or so forth to make it consistent. We had that in your prior comprehensive plan as well, where some things were labeled and some things were not. In response to also the public comments, we, as I was running through it, as he was saying, I was like, oh yeah, there are some things in your original comprehensive plan that were internally inconsistent as well, like coastal construction line wasn't capitalized with C in some areas, but they were capitalized in other areas. That's part of the original plan that you have. So we will try our best to catch those grammatical and typo issues from your original plan as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
So the next one, the entire thing got crossed out. Eddie, just want to give us a quick, brief overview of what you did there, if you put it in other areas, so that people understand why that entire section.
Oh, this one has come full circle in the 5 years. Or if you recall, at the beginning when we were first hired, we were told to really put the envelope, and we gave these different much higher densities. Then we were given the instruction that we've held since then to just maintain your existing density, which is what we have done. The main difference being, while maintaining your density, trying to open up your land uses a little bit more with different nodes across the island that were more equally distributed to deal with your traffic issues, because you have a one-way road. And the land use overall then provides for the mixed-use district that are really just concentrated along Estera Boulevard at very specific points that we discussed and I think about 5 meetings over the last
Yes.
a year and a half, as well as in the 3 public additional workshops that the council funded over this past year. We brought those maps to the public as well at the music festival, at the open data library, and then a third workshop where we tried to have a charrette process, and I bought about $1,500 of Legos up to the 3rd floor in case people wanted to, play with that. And we showed you those in pictures in the June meeting as well, so to try to get that community input on where things should be distributed. Importantly, where the youth conversation originally came to play was that back in 2020, 2021, we're finding that folks were trying to put new users in on the island that were services, such as the bank, at the example that we keep going back to. They weren't able to do so because your land use code was too restrictive. And so trying to opening that up then allow for that investment to occur a little bit differently. But your rules do still provide for those restrictions where you can't have certain uses that are trying to come in.
Thanks, Eddie. Next is 1B1. That's essentially just the map adoption. There's nothing major there.
I have a question
Yes,
on that one,
go ahead.
Mayor. I don't understand the last sentence. It says, this map enhances the principles of this comprehensive plan by assigning one of 9 8 categories.
Yeah.
Is that like a 6 7?
I'm sorry, Council Member Link, can you point to the thing
Yes.
for us?
Policy flu 1B1, map adoption.
1B1.
The last sentence,
Let's see.
assigning one of 9 8
I
categories.
believe we were trying that to be a strike through on the 8th. That just was
So
a
it's 9
formatting
categories.
issue because there was with the different changes, it changed from 8 to 9 categories in order to differentiate one. Thank you for that.
Eddie, I think we all received an email where a resident raised the question of encroachment into residential areas with the business nodes that are being suggested in the land use map for the benefit of that person. Could you explain the process or how the residential neighborhoods would be protected or buffered from a business node?
Right. Originally, when we had gone through for the node, we actually had a much more expansive area that included some changes to the medium residential and so forth based on the direction at the time. After meeting with the LPA and the council in a joint meeting, we were instructed to scale those back, and the instructions were scaled back to what was currently a pedestrian commercial or other similar categories where those uses would already have been in play in order to protect against the intrusion. In that sense, the mixed-use districts that you see were aligned with things there, districts that were designed with that in mind in the first place. So that's a pedestrian commercial that you currently have under your code. Further, when we went through and went with that, if you recall, during the discussion about the small arts mixed-use center, which is actually where we are right now, the LPA and the council felt that the area too expansive. And at that time, they actually asked us to remove a couple of properties from that designation and revert back to residential. With that map had been changed accordingly because it wanted to provide for that. The last aspect of intrusion prevention is by designating these areas for growth and for certain densities, you are helping protect those other neighborhoods because you're trying to corral that type of investment into these particular districts that you've already assigned in your original comprehensive plan. Just a little bit more loose in terms of what you can allow in those districts by changing the categories a bit.
And Jim, I think we're going to get into that over the next 8 discussions that are coming through here. All right, the 1B2, that's just the apply to the future land use. I don't know that anybody has any issues with that one sentence. This is where I think, Eddie, you're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what everybody's had issues with, if I'm not mistaken. The first one is 1B, 2A, low density residential. Any comments or concerns with that as it is laid out? Looks like they just changed one minor letter.
We added the word residential.
Yep.
Yep.
Just to make it clear.
Next is 1B, 2B, medium residential. There were some crossouts and some adds to this. Anybody have any concerns with this section?
I just have a comment that we crossed out mobile home, but we left RV parks.
Yeah, I
Yep.
remember that.
The mobile homes were crossed out, but RV parks are left.
You wanted to cross out the RV park now too?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. No, I definitely agree, but I just need
Geez, I wonder why.
I would
specific,
strongly recommend yes,
yeah.
if
Yes.
anybody.
The most, yes.
Yeah.
Every house becomes one.
All right. That is good because it's actually
Think of it that
consistent
way.
with where the state wants every community to go with reducing this over time. So, yeah, period, right? Exactly, that's true. SB 180. Yeah, right. Actually, now that you remind me, that is why I kept it in. I wanted to delete it. Anyway, Jason brings up a really good point. If you delete that, it might be considered more restrictive.
Oh,
SB 180.
because we have it.
I think we did have that internal discussion
Let
that
him
he
call us on
jogged
it.
my memory. And
Because-
I mean, you can always remove it at a later date.
But doesn't the FEMA code say you can't allow it, so we're kind of being consistent with.
RVs.
There you go.
Well,
Okay, go for it.
FEMA is highly, they don't want temporary structures like that in flood zones. Specifically, we have established by ordinance some exceptions to that, with people apply for the proper permit. So I don't, I would,
Yeah,
I understand what you're saying about SB 180.
right. And they're really two different things, the mobile home and RVs. The mobile home's a challenge. You're not going to get many here. It's just the way that you have to build them and elevate them. It's not practical. So I think it solves itself somewhat from that perspective. RVs is a different conversation because RVs are typically in, I know they don't want them to be used as housing, but RV parks are typically in recreation and flood areas. I mean, they're all over the
But
state. That's
I
where
guess
natural
where
areas, so-
where I'm confused, Jason, is you seem to be okay with crossing out mobile home, but not RV parks. Couldn't I make the same argument that you're saying by crossing out mobile homes would be more restrictive?
Yeah, my
Bill?
answer to you is, I think, if you don't cross out mobile homes because we're concerned about 180, you're okay because you're not going to get more of them just because the logistics of having to build them. I don't think it's a housing type that's can afford to move here and be built because of how much they have to be elevated. It solves itself. The
I guess
RV
I'm with
part-
Jim on this.
The
Go ahead. You want
risk
to call
of
us to
a-
the
Yeah,
mat on this?
call us out.
I guess it's the
We're doing the
risk
right
of a
thing.
challenge is where you're coming
Yes.
from because of the likelihood of having mobile homes on the island is not,
Right.
it's not feasible, but the same is true for parks. This is RV parks, not just
Not just
RVs.
RVs on
And there's a
residential lots.
difference.
It's a whole different story.
So take
Strike it.
So to me,
Bring
it's
it on.
maybe we don't cross either of them out because of the challenge, or you go all the way and cross them all out, I guess.
and take the risk that somebody might challenge it, but
Eddie, what are you saying?
I don't think you cross either out to be on the safe side, and then when the time is appropriate, you can always go back and cross it out then. But I just had another community that got there
Cross it out.
that really going through an SB 180 challenge and over a Scrivener's error, no less. So it's been really difficult to work with the
On a
state.
barrier island, Eddie?
They have a barrier island, but they're both inland and a barrier island.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's.
I guess I see if you don't cross either of them out, they still have to meet floodplain regulations to be approved
Exactly, and
anyway.
they can't.
They do. That is correct.
So then it's moved.
It's
And
in there.
RV parks are vehicles, right? So they're going to leave. That's why it's not like
Yeah.
we're not promoting using that as a residential occupancy use. That's not.
Yeah, but the point is, what if they don't?
Well, we have codes and regulations that.
I mean, after they're floating through three people's houses, I know. I won't die on it either.
It's a policy statement. not an ordinance.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, so we agree that we're not gonna cross either of them out then, and we'll keep both of them. Well, we're gonna cross out the extra word.
I don't know that we
Tolerated.
agree on that,
No.
but if that's your advice to leave them both
Yeah.
there.
I mean,
I-
I'm
I
happy
see
to do
what you're
whatever you wish. It's just that if it comes down to it and the state challenges it, you might have to enter in a lawsuit to pass that through.
Right,
No,
but
no.
it's a risk management as far as, are we gonna have litigation? We might, I mean, we have litigation all the time about things that have really no basis. If you leave it in and nothing happens, I would say leave it in, because then you got rid of that potential risk and you can deal with other risks that you might want to take.
Okay. Okay.
All right, keep them in, Eddie. And anybody have any, I mean, we can go around the room and ask everybody. I mean,
Well,
there's a lot of what ifs here.
Right.
And, but you are saying this is going to be an issue at the state level review if you take this out.
So
Leave it
Okay,
Happy to
Right.
so that stays in. All right,
I live just like this meeting and
all right.
actually get them all go home and
Right.
try and hide.
Right.
All right, we'll continue that. So the other thing that caught my eye was where it says commercial activities are appropriate primarily along Estero Boulevard and must be sensitive to nearby residential uses. To me, that's contradictory. You're saying that residential or commercial activities are appropriate, but then you're saying must be sensitive. Well, what is that?
We're all sensitive.
Well, obviously the grammar seems a little off to me too.
And our must.
And
Okay,
must
all
be
right.
sensitive.
Yeah, it could be
Well, I
must
think
and
that's-
must.
That's the note issue.
it is a note
It
issue.
is a
That's
note issue. Yeah.
The business nodes work for commercial along Estero. And we need to worry
Right.
about the buffer and the impact on the adjacent.
And the uses, I
residential.
think when you start defining those uses later on in here, that there's some words that need to be changed, I think, but we'll get to that. So that's just a grammar thing I think we need to clean up.
Yeah, we'll strike out the word are, and go with must be.
Do you want to say, and must be sensitive to impacts on nearby residential uses?
Well, I don't know if it would say commercial
Or shall
activities
be.
may be appropriate primarily along instead of are. I mean, you're just,
Okay,
that, to me, that's saying
Yes.
if I'm coming into the mixed medium residential area, I'm going to say, well, the comp plan says that my commercial use is according to the way I read this,
yes.
as opposed to maybe.
Me.
I would say that if you use maybe as opposed to are, you have current uses along Estero Boulevard at the hotels and so forth that are on mixed residential properties. And the state may come in and say that because you change it to maybe instead of are, you may be restricting them. And that might be similar to.
Well, that'd be
another
assuming that
activity.
you wouldn't grant back the use that they had pre-storm. I don't.
No, because it's, because they're currently allowed. And so the state might come back and issue a similar comment that this for another community, that this, they wouldn't outright say that this would be run about 180. They would say this may run about 180 and they may have, that they may have cause concern for it. They also may take it a notch higher and say, hey, we think that this violates SB 180.
But you added this. This wasn't there before. You added this. So if we put it in there, then SB 180 comes as an issue. Right now, this sentence is not in that realm of an issue.
If you take that sentence out, you must restore the other sentence the portion of the sentence that is struck out.
Limited to lower impact uses.
It goes back to the issue that we spoke about the limitations that we have with the bank and so forth that that you were trying to cure as a council and LPA. So this was kind of the middle ground here. If you take that out, you are not current the issue that you brought up to us 4 years ago and have repeated.
Well, couldn't you then just take lower impact commercial activities are instead of, commercial activities can be anything. We want to build a steel factory, go ahead. It says it's appropriate.
Well, no, because that, Excuse me, Minister.
Well, I think the tentative aspect is to allow you that discretion to say what to what level of impact, right?
Okay.
You say, the sensitivity is low impact, but what if you have something that, you're changing the rules at some point. I mean, you're allowed to go
I see
either
what you're
way.
saying. I see what you're saying.
We'll write it the way you want to, but that would be my caution there, is that you're taking your discretion away from yourself in that regard. Is that what you want to do?
No.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying.
Right.
It just, to
So
me,
this
that
section's
direction,
okay.
well, other than a little wording, I guess,
Yeah,
it sounds like.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody else is okay with it? I'm okay with it. Then you got the density part of it. That didn't change, right? You're just codifying that. That the 6 dwelling units per acre, that's the same that it's always been. It's not adding. There was some concern that this read that you're adding some density that wasn't already there, which is not the case.
Yeah, our instructions for go for it.
And I just want to take the opportunity to touch on that too, because there's confusion over that overlay, which used to be called an overlay in the platted neighborhoods. That is not density that new development can take advantage of. It is limited to 6. That language was always in there to protect existing platted lots that were small. Because if you did the calculation, it would work out to be about 10 units an acre. It's just another way to say if you have a platted lot, you're protected. But when you buy a bunch of those lots and combine them to do new development, you're subject to the
6.
density limitations of 6. That has
Okay.
been
That's-
tried to be
that's
used other
good to
ways
have
in the
that on
past,
record.
and is not the way your plan was set up and it says. So it is 6.
Yep.
And protecting existing. That's all that is.
Good clarity.
Very good.
We get a lot
Very good.
of the other way,
So
and
very
it's
good.
not what it's meant to be.
Why do we take that out then, Jason? New development, the max, why did we strike through that then?
They moved it.
It's
Non-resident,
It's down in,
It's this.
it's a new set, it's just
See
by
here for
itself.
new
with
development
all
and
that.
maximum density. Oh, you've
Yes,
got it
it's
down
the new
below.
one.
I see.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right.
Scott.
Yeah. You see that it just moved.
I
There's
see.
a bunch of text here also in the other section where it didn't make sense in the order and sequence it was. Sometimes you had to jump
Just
different
clean it.
pages.
That's fine.
So, yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the 1B2 C5 mixed use. There's a lot of added context here. Does anybody have any major heartburn over the way it's worded?
It's not heartburn, but now we're using must versus will and shall.
Yeah.
Do we care? Last sentence.
I harped on this
Yes.
too. And I thought, is this something to worry, to concern about? But it is that consistency thing where you want to see the
trying
same
to do
words
today, I
over and
think, yeah.
over again.
Right. I think for the purposes of reviewing, I think we've already established that we're going to go through and change everything to shall, except where staff has a recommendation to you where it should be should because of conflict or other
Great.
reasoning. For time purposes, because I know we have a large document to get through.
Yeah.
Anything else on that one?
Nope.
All right, next is the Times Square Mixed Use District. Goes into the purpose and the uses.
Just a typo there. You might want to catch the word used, mixed, used. Take the D.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to the intensity part of it. Anybody have any issues with the 2.5 FAR, which again is consistent with what's there, correct?
It's exactly
Yep.
what's there.
Transient, they broke that out. Non-residential development subject to rules of FAR. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Yep.
And then the density, same thing. It's basically just a reiteration of what the previous one was.
It's actually a slight change from what you have now, because the concern provided to us was that what coming back and those hotels and motels were not able to redevelop in a way that would be economically sustainable for them. And so the instruction to us at the time was to come up with something different. And this was what we had landed on about 2.5 years ago and presented to you then. We had not received any comments on that since. What this does is instead of doing a weird mathematical somersault to figure out how much hotel motel units you have, you could have on a property. It changed it to, this is the buildable square footage that you have, and based on regulation on how small or big unit sizes can be with that, this is your max total. It's a much easier way to calculate for you put in your LDR instead of trying to do you have a portion, and I believe it's a portion and proportion ratio right now that I think Jason can speak more to, that I haven't really seen anywhere else actually.
So the headache is it's based on square footage of unit size, which I can't figure out why it was big. So over 750, you can't do the math. Let me put it that way. The short version is it's impossible to do the formula the way the code has set it up based on the comp plan. So trying to simplify it so it's more straightforward. So for example, you get less multiplier if it's more than 750 square feet. You get a different amount if it's between 450 and 749, and then it's another one. So you got to do the calculation 3 or 4 times, and it actually doesn't work. So what we've been saying is number of rooms to density, but it's really incorrect to do it that way because the code has a different thing. But it's just a bad way to do it. It's been a headache.
So another
So
question.
what we want is ultimately what we want from staff when we bring something to you is you want to use other projects as comparisons, right? You want to be able to visualize it, and these numbers are getting thrown around and miscalculated and misrepresented. We want you to be able to be very simple in how you can understand what they're asking for. That's the hope.
Yeah, I would totally agree. But with regards to the Times Square, are there any plotted overlays even there?
Well, yeah, so as an example, the whole intent of that recognizing existing development is, you have very, very tiny lots in Times Square or other places, some under 4,000 square feet.
That's
right? So you can do this 1,000 different ways. The point of it is to recognize that those lots platted prior to certain dates, usually the 80s, are safe, invested, and we're not going to take rights away. Right. And you've done a lot of changes over the years to your MUD process and to the requirements of that. It used to be if you had a structure within a foot of a property line built after a certain date, then you didn't get both lots and you had to combine them. And that's a very dangerous place to be from a investing standpoint. So we've simplified all that and said, if you had a platted lot, you got utilities, you're on a roadway, you're vested. And that's all that's really getting at.
All right, we'll move on to the Civic Center Mixed Use District. Any comments, questions, concerns on the purpose? What about the uses?
That's the old town hall area, correct?
Ish, yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
All right, but the intensity? That is staying the same, that 1.5?
It is.
All right, and then the density is just another, just adding the same sentence in each one
Right.
of these.
Yeah, you'll see that with the bond of the district because since that was an existing rule, you asked it to
Right.
use the pedestrian commercial, we had to retain that right, otherwise it's more restrictive.
All right, we'll move on then to the Center Island Mixed Use District. Any issues with the purpose? What about the uses?
Because it all pretty much stays the same.
Intensity and density?
Jane, we're on page 15, bottom of page 15.
All right, then we'll move on to the Theater and Arts Mixed Use District.
Which is where we are now. It
Yes.
just, the name of this
Yeah.
district makes no sense because there's no theater,
theater,
no
no
arts.
You all are welcome to change the name to whatever you want. It was proposed at the time because they had a theater and
That's
we're
right.
like, we
That's
had a
exactly right.
placeholder for it. I think we
That's
mentioned
right.
that last time
About
as
the
well.
non-theater arts district.
Yeah.
It encompasses
The old beach theater.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
part of this right now, so maybe we should recognize that.
The Town Hall District, is that what you're getting at?
We have a civic district that doesn't have a town hall. We have the theater district that has a town hall.
Right.
Perhaps we should.
I don't
know.
know.
Think
Think
about
about
what we
that.
We would like to have instruction like directive from you on the exact name because we're at that point
Yes.
where we want
What if
to
we
have-
just flip it and just make
Yeah,
these,
we wanna
instead
flip-
of Civic Center, just call it the Center Mixed Use and move the Civic over to where Theater and Arts is?
Wasn't that just called the heart of the island?
I think it was
It
originally
was.
the center mix. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think
Center
it
Island.
originally wasn't it.
Center Island at Newton Park.
Center Island and make this the civic area? I don't care. I only bring it up because
It doesn't make sense.
somebody would say, well, where's your theater? Where's your art center? Where's your whatever? But I don't know what it should be.
So let's look and see what we think it's going to include.
Let's think
Yeah.
about it
Theater
and
and
keep
arts
going.
and
The arts are actually down by,
They're off the island on McGregor Boulevard now.
well, it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, what used to be area.
Yeah.
Bank and a theater.
Well, if we
Salon.
make a decision now, we don't have to come back to it. So why don't
Okay.
we just
Yeah.
take
So-
Civic out of the first one and move it over to this one?
Agree.
If everybody's okay with that, or some other suggestion.
So any reason,
just-
any problem with that?
Pardon?
Any problem with that? Or you like that? Or just move a word?
Move the
Move
word,
civic.
absolutely okay with me. This is your plan. I'm happy to just,
It's just a title. It's what
Yeah,
the
it's
substantive
just-
stuff
right,
is
it
below
doesn't,
it.
Yeah.
it doesn't change the
Civic.
content.
Yep.
But, I want to make sure it's what you
Changes
guys
the
want for the
purpose.
name, so you just want me to just flip the name for B and C. I'm B and D.
No, we don't want
No.
D anywhere. We
No,
don't want theater
eliminate
and arts
civic.
anywhere.
Okay,
Because we
so
don't have that.
what are we naming it now?
B would just be Center Mixed Use District, and then D would be the Civic District. Civic Mixed Use
Civic
District.
mixed use.
Civic,
Okay.
yeah, civic misuse.
So Center
Those
Mixed
are
Use District,
Restaurants.
and then
And-
D is Civic.
Well, then you
Civic
have
mixed
two
use.
center you have a center mixed and a center
Civic.
island mix. Yeah, that's confusing.
And
B
all our,
and C are
all our
similar.
uses are gonna get a little commingled here in a minute
And
too.
purposes.
Yeah, the purpose is.
Just gonna get all changed.
This is
So nice to
Hey
ride.
Doug, yeah.
Hey, I just want to offer, the area that we are currently calling the civic area does include like the ball fields. And, civic amenities.
It's true.
Yes,
So
community
it just-
center.
It happened to at one point include the town hall. but
So leave everything the same and change the
Civic
town hall
Yes.
mixed use.
And we have to change the purpose.
How about Center Cultural
Center cultural.
Or just call it Cultural Mixed Use.
or Cultural Mixed Use? Yeah, that can work as well.
Okay.
Then do we have our purpose that needs to be changed since it starts
Just
out
the
with
word.
theater?
Yes.
Those changes as well through the paragraphs.
Can all fit.
That's the top purpose I would-
Can everyone live with cultural mixed use and leave everything else the way it is?
Somebody will talk about us next time doing that. That's fine.
I like that because that encompasses Bay Oaks and they're looking to do more things there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it promotes that.
Good job, Doug.
All
Okay,
right.
so Civic
Okay,
Center
cultural
goes to
and civic.
cultural, Center Island will stay the same, and the arts and theater will then.
No, I think we just went around.
Civic,
I
right?
think we went, I think we went the other direction.
We did.
I think B stays the same, Civic Center Mixed Use.
Mhm.
And D only change, you get rid of theater and arts and it's called cultural mixed use. That was what I was,
Oh, cultural, you're saying should be D.
it should be D,
Was
yes.
that it?
That was what I thought we were
Yeah.
talking about.
What we were talking about, it doesn't still feel anything like
I would
cultural.
say
Whatever.
Well, every town council meeting, the culture changes in here, so I don't know.
That's true.
It's kind of the culture.
This sets the culture, right?
A lot of pressure on the
Good
culture.
point.
I think this
Civic
is
here.
important.
Civic here,
Civic here. Cultural where Bay Oaks
right,
is.
Bay Oaks, okay.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
what I
Yep.
Whatever,
Got
Oh, okay.
We will
Yeah.
make the
whatever you
appropriate-
want.
I like
So
that.
go back.
Yeah, we do civic things here. We do
Okay,
cultural.
perfect.
Bay Oaks.
All right,
Makes
we're
all
flip it
sorts of
around
sense.
then.
Yeah,
Yes.
Just call it pickleball.
and library and all kinds of classes. Yeah.
Okay, Santini Village.
You want to change the name of that?
We do. You want to call it Santina Marina? What'd you call
I
it?
would call it Santini Marina.
There you are.
All right.
Yeah, people would love to know that there's a
Did
marina.
you
Always
catch
call
that
it the
one?
southeast.
Santini Marina.
If we have a determination there, I will make that change.
Santini Marina.
Can I take out the word the?
I'm sorry?
Can I take the word the?
You can if you like.
Okay.
So is it Santini Marina Village or is
No,
it Santini Marina?
mixed use.
Okay, just making sure I got that right. So we're getting rid of
Be
village and
confused with
the.
Santa.
Yep.
And nothing
It
changed
does say that
here.
later down in the body
It
too.
does, it does. But nothing changed here as far as density or FAR. It's all the same.
Correct.
It is the same. If you recall, part of the earlier discussion was, do we add on to this for the marine type uses or for extra residences? And LPA and council said, no, just revert back to the original. So this is where we are.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Boulevard. Comments, questions, concerns? What about for the density part of it?
The increase for workforce housing, I just don't know what the reality of it is, excuse me, but it doesn't bother me that it's there.
Yeah, I think the original discussions, however many years ago, was, could you use that as an enticer to go higher in certain areas to be able to offer that?
Yeah.
Whether or not that's, lots changed since that initial discussion.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. That was what our instructions were with the LPA and council at the time.
Does anybody want to remove it or is everybody fine with that staying in there? Again, the
I'm okay
project's
with
going
it
to be.
staying in there.
Okay.
It's gonna come up again under
Yep.
housing
Yep.
one,
Yep.
two.
Yes, it is.
Then we'll move on to FLU 1B2E, pedestrian commercial. Nothing major changed in there that I noticed. Anybody have any issues with that?
Well, you just.
That is-
Again, that wording, Villa Santini Plaza.
Yep,
Right.
again,
Right. We're going to change that.
okay, that can be good, so it's just good, so it's consistent.
As a reminder to the council and LPA, originally this portion, why it's still a category here, originally all of it was put into mixed use. The remaining portion that was carved out, we need to keep this definition in here because you have to reduce the area further without changing the land use for those remaining parcels. So that's why you have that pedestrian commercial here.
And the 2.5 is the same FAR it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, we do need to retain that aspect of the density that you see under here.
Yeah.
That no change. Actually, that was the original text right there.
So moving on to Marina, there seems to be and I'm just trying to reread it here, a conflict of Marina has no density, but it encourages residential use, which would require density.
Mhm.
The
Am I
density
missing
there,
something?
FAR, floor area ratio is a form of density and it allows for 1.5. We had originally suggested you allow up to half a dwelling unit per acre, and we were told to reduce it to no residential and only to make it fully commercial from a floor area ratio standpoint. That's how that ended up the way it was. So we had recommended that under the marina, you allow for a little bit of, about ground floor residential, but we were told no.
Well, how did we get to where we are with the marina from Moss Marine?
They did a comp plan amendment.
They changed their designation.
Mhm.
So you don't think there's a conflict here?
We don't think there's a conflict here.
Okay.
It's a category in and of itself. We feel that from a staff standpoint, it's an improvement because if you look at the original text, you don't have any density in there and makes it completely unviable as a land use category because you have no metrics by which to put it into your code afterwards.
Yeah.
So at minimum, however formatted, you don't strike it out, you need to put metrics in there.
So this then contributes to the conversation we had about how essential we felt marinas were to the community.
Right.
And I think to your point, Anita, to me, in my mind, it becomes counterproductive. If in order for a marina to be viable, if you can have some sort of dwelling units that they can do, to me, that's a way to try to ensure that you save a marina.
Right.
But how you word it in a way
It
that
just seems conflicting to me.
Right.
I don't know, maybe it could just be me.
We had originally recommended the residential because marinas have different aspects that you see even like elsewhere in the state where they do have some of the residential component either in a vertical or horizontal mixed use. And that anchors some of the businesses within the marina. It's also folks who keep their boat there might want to live close to their property, right? But they go in the water for a reason. We live here for a reason.
Yep.
And so that we thought, that's one aspect. The other aspect is that while it doesn't always pan out, if you have some residential and someone's willing to offer that at workforce housing as an incentive, then that's where some of those workers may live. That's not always the case, particularly at a low ratio for marinas. Actually, like you have an incentive program that almost never happens for marina because of the high value of those properties.
Eddie, can you answer me a question? With in our current codes, I'm just trying to think of the pink shell one when they came back and they added some liveaboard space. Do liveaboards count as residential dwelling units in our current code?
I
I
don't
just
believe
thought I
so.
remembered that count was being counted towards it, but
I
could be
don't
wrong.
believe it is counted towards the overall intensity.
Shouldn't it be?
They were limited by permitting. I think there's a number of liveaboards was in their DEP permit. I don't know if that has more to do with waste or what,
Pollution, yeah.
but pollution.
Well, I know
Size of
it
the slips
increased, and I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if liveaboards are not considered dwelling units,
currently in your code, I
They are
don't know. I don't think it is.
okay.
There are some codes that have that as a definition in the keys as a perfect example. They very much regulate them as density, but yours does not.
Yeah, to me, this one is really fights itself because you don't want to give away density, or at least that's been what people have said, but you want to save marinas. And most marinas now will have some sort of density to be able to operate as a marina. So we can't have it both ways. Either you're going to have a marina that's going to operate the way it is now with no dwelling units, or you allow them to have some dwelling units. And your recommendation was a half a dwelling unit per acre originally. I don't remember. We've gone back and forth so many times I can't remember.
Well, Mid-Island
Pardon?
has residential and
I think we originally proposed half a dwelling unit per acre, and that would have to be reduced to nothing.
well, basically what we're saying is that, Mid-Island has residential, so what we're saying is Santini cannot. Because that's the only other
Or
marina.
Snook Bite.
So
Snook
That's
Bite
what
has
she's
it.
talking about, Mid-Island.
Yeah.
That's old school.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm old.
was there, I don't remember the zero conversation, to be frank. Was that because of overtaking the marina, or was it in becoming the option instead of?
No, I think it was just, it came up as a conversation in the Moss discussion because there was, the current code or comp plan doesn't allow for any dwelling units.
Right.
So it didn't allow any flexibility, which forced them to go through the comp plan amendment to be
Okay.
able to do
Sure.
what they wanted to do. Is this an opportunity to correct some of that? So if there was, say, even a half acre
Mhm.
or a half a dwelling unit per acre, or even one, whatever, or you keep the same language of the 6 dwelling units per acre.
Right.
Would that then, should Snook Bite or Santini want to come forward to do something, would allow them to be able to do that without making another comp plan amendment? Or would they still need to do a comp plan amendment based on the numbers?
No, I mean, if you
Regardless.
add the density, then you can include that. I would also include some percentage cap so that it doesn't overrun the category. You don't want it to become primarily residential, right? So a lot of categories throughout the state have if you're going to do this mix, they define the percentage mix within it. So you would want to, yes, 6 units an acre, but no more than 25% is residential, something like that. That's, it's up to you.
I see it as we're restricting Santini because everybody else has it. Snook has it.
This is Doug. I just,
Go ahead, Doug.
trying to get my head around this a little bit too, but like Snook Bite does have
Yeah.
landscaping rent. I mean, like, for people on their boats and they go there and then there's a swimming pool.
There's a swimming pool?
Is that-
Yeah.
It seems like marinas do need, maybe not, I don't know if residential is the right word, but they do need accommodations for overnight guests.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why we're concerned
I'm
about,
not sure why we're concerned about zero.
exactly. If the marina has to operate by all the rules we currently have in place, we want to encourage the marina to continue to operate and not be tempted to sell and turn over. I think we would make it as attractive as possible to multi-use that space with the proviso that the marina has to remain a full marina, fully operating, all the things that are in the codes already today. So I was interested in whoever talked you out of that, which doesn't sound like anybody knows anymore. But I think Dan, you raised a great issue. I have no problem supporting dwelling there at all.
Of course, that is increasing the density.
That's why I said you're kind of fighting the message, but this is a very unique situation. I don't know how you operate a marina encourage operation of a marina without allowing some flexibility
Totally.
in their ability to be able to do it.
Yeah, and we even talk about broadening those uses.
Diversified, they have rooms for captains and crew to stay overnight, when they bring a boat in for service. There's the captain, they have rooms to rent.
Yeah,
Or, for the captain, for crew to stay.
Yeah.
I don't have any heartburn. I don't have any
Uses
heartburn
that
with
support
offering some
the
flexibility
marina.
with dwelling units in a marina. Just for what Doug was talking about, things like that. I mean,
I think they kind of need it.
you still have backstops through the land development code to prevent certain things from happening, but
Yeah, I mean, more than likely, you end up in a land development situation, rezoning type of situation anyway.
Sure. So what do you want to put in there?
You want to go back to the half that Eddie suggested at the beginning?
Yeah, you could do half, you could do
Why don't you
one.
just-
I wouldn't do more
Can
than
you
that.
say anything? Can you just say you're limited to the 1.5 FAR? Period.
Well, that's interesting.
Mhm.
So if you don't say anything,
that would
So now-
that would be a very big number, or potentially a very
Yeah, I'm
big
doing that
number
right now.
on Santini.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
so
a
to-
lot of land
to
there.
go
There is.
from 0 to whatever's in the box,
That's a big jump.
knowing you
Oh, yeah.
guys, I don't know.
I
That's
get it.
No, no,
High
no.
rise.
What about
well, no, you still have height restrictions.
Oh, I had just a concept of density.
trying.
It is transient.
Right. Well, that's
That's
what I'm
also
saying.
limiting it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, does it make sense to keep consistency that has been throughout with the dwelling units per acre?
Sure.
Can you do it that way? I mean,
Would that be like 6 per acre?
isn't that similar to what we have everywhere else when it
It
comes
is.
to density?
Except
6
where
dwelling
it's
units per acre.
grandfather.
That would reduce it and keep it.
Mhm.
If we're getting rid of this multiplier and all these other things that make it
Bigger.
impossible to
Calculate.
calculate.
I like that.
It just concerns me that
Yeah.
you said, don't increase anything, don't give anything new by right, and this would be a big give.
No, I
Well,
100% agree.
It's a clarification too, because it's undefined right now, right? So it doesn't say 0 now.
It does,
just doesn't
right
talk.
here.
Well, no, the proposed does. The existing policy doesn't talk about it.
So if we left the existing policy as it is, the 2 existing marinas we have would be obligated to come in as Moss Marina did for an amendment in order to pursue whatever other development they might want. Is that correct?
Yes, currently, yes.
Does that
Which-
make more sense than changing this to 6 units per acre?
Which hat do you want me to wear to answer that question?
Well, go ahead and change that. Go ahead and tell both sides.
If I was on the development side, I would probably most likely never use it. The legislative side, it's very easy for you to, I don't mean to say this, Nancy's going to kill me, but make up the rules as you go, so to speak, on the legislative side versus the quasi judicial side. Right. So if I'm on your side, you want as much control as you can get over that. So it just depends on which one you want. I don't think our whole point from the beginning was diversify the marinas, keep them.
Marinas,
And,
but we
and
gotta
if
keep it
they can
balanced.
still have that option, if it's not enough and they want more, they can still come through and do an amendment to the plan. I mean, you got an application now that's pending. That's going to be an amendment to your plan already. So somebody else always has that. So if you gave some, move forward. Hopefully it helps. Somebody
The
can
more
come in
you
and do
the more you
it.
keep talking, the more it doesn't make sense to change it, in my opinion, because if they can do it anyway.
Sure.
And we're not
Well,
gonna
they
do
can
it
come
until
through
we
with
have
an
to do it.
application to amend
Then
the
we'll deal
future
with it
land
case
use
by
map.
case.
That's
that comes
right.
up.
Right. So they could come through with a site-specific
Doesn't
plan
restrict them.
with an amendment. They could create a new category for themselves. They could ask for an existing category if it fit. I mean, there are options, yes.
But it won't take a comp plan amendment if they come in for residential application inclusion with their,
I think it would.
Yeah.
if we leave it like it is, I mean.
If we leave it like it is, they'd have to do the same thing that Moss Marina would have.
So the marina portion on the changes originally came out as a change because the original look at the mixed uses included the areas marinas. And so we had originally struck the entire section out and had subsumed it into the mixed use. during the meeting, one of the joint meeting with the LPA and the council, we were asked to separate that back out of mixed use and then restore it as a separate category because it wasn't, while we're focused on one area of the map, there were discussion on whether or not other portion of the island might be rezoned at some point to a marina use, not just where we're talking about with that particular property by Old San Carlos. So that's why I did it here the way it is to provide a basis for both that area and a consistent basis for other areas. So that's a little bit of the history. We're good to change it the way you want to, whether retaining or not. With, I would say, if you don't give any metric on it, the state may also still come back and say, look, you didn't change it, but you didn't put a metric either. So how are you going to regulate this? Like you can't, the comp plan doesn't make sense in that regard. So you run the risk of that happening too. So that's where we kind of have to, pick a number.
May have to, you said, if it comes back from the state.
You don't want to come back on second reading, no. Like I would say the May is very high because I don't think I've ever gotten a comprehensive plan policy through where it didn't have the metric for density in a land use category, because until that point, it's not actually something that you could utilize. Madam Attorney, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with your comment, and putting the 0 in there as you have, it kind of, I think, keeps what was already there, because what was there was basically 0, pushing people to go get a future land use change. I know there was some reference made to Santini, but there is a separate future land use category for Santini.
Yes, that's true.
So, is there some inconsistency if we say 0 dwelling units per acre, and then in the last sentence, we say inclusive of commercial and residential uses, provided the uses do not displace independent related services?
Yeah.
So we talked in the last one, we talked the redevelopment of existing marinas shall encourage a working waterfront with mixed-use development inclusive of commercial and residential use.
There's the
That's true.
conflict.
Right. So if you decide to go with 0, we will remove that last sentence. If you need to put a number, that should probably stay with some adjustment for cap limiter.
So if we stayed at 0 and remove the last sentence, does that still give you heartburn as to the state kicking it back?
No, because
No.
it did.
Okay.
Because you're giving metrics. You said we're not going to have any residential. We allow for 1.5 FAR. It's a measurable metric where opposed to right now, you don't have any. It's just having that a valuable metric within your land use. That's what they look for. They don't, unless there's something there that's, tied to something out, that's the base for, objection.
Go ahead, Don.
Can we just, what about permanent, 0 permanent dwelling? Because, a transient, which is what a marina residential use is a use. It's a residential use. It's just not a permanent residential use. Could we do it just that simple? Or?
I agree with you because I think that addresses what Doug brought up around the business being able to be more modern and competitive
Right.
with some
With
of the other.
temporary, transient.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
It's still density.
Is it? I mean,
For
You can add whatever
residential?
uses you want, is it right? I
Either on the
it's-
boat or in there.
Yeah.
Same person.
Well, what about
I mean, you implement it through zoning essentially, but yes.
6 dwelling units per acre would still keep it lower than any other way to.
but it
also
would be increasing the density
would.
overall of the island though, because it doesn't have any now.
You're right. Well, we
Just-
want them to survive.
Well, we do, and I think the modern economic models allow some flexible residential use. And the last thing you want to do is have Waterhead flip it or something and say, I can't make it work because we want to do some of these issues. I just think that's real life today.
It's almost like you're encouraging a marina, a property in the marina district to decide not to be in the marina.
exactly right. Or very commercial only,
Right.
and I mean high end and that kind of stuff
Right.
that wouldn't fit our
So-
matrix at all.
Mayor, council member, LPA, if I may, for 1 second to kind of build on what you're saying. When you think of a marina, modern marina, what do you think of? You think of a place where,
You can have lunch and dock your boat and get gas and water, and I do not think about staying there.
But you don't have a boat.
But that's
We're
in-
talking about what-
marinas all over the world, even in third world countries
Think
have
of it as a truck
hotels.
stop.
hotels.
Hotels and
Okay,
everything, all
Key West.
residential around there.
All of them have houses.
So you see,
You bring
Let-
something in for maintenance, for example.
Right.
Exactly.
That's
Could be 3 weeks.
Yeah, the AC's out on the boat.
don't listen to me.
Place to stay.
It's-
Nobody's
okay, so
listening.
when I think of a marina,
What do you think?
I go to and I'm like, okay, this is where someone can moor their boat, partial or long term. This is where I may have restaurant, waterfront restaurant. I may have, other things like a convenience store or like
Yeah.
a place where I can go ice cream. I'm
Yeah,
big on
we
ice
go to
cream.
the same
Oh,
marina
yeah.
evidently.
Right.
Yes.
Now
Wait,
let's take a
never
look
stays
at what
right.
it actually currently says in the dropout portion, if you were to revert back to it. This categorizes for recreational boating.
Repairs and fuel and,
Yeah.
purposes to maintain a boat too.
If you were to keep your existing definition,
Yeah.
none of that's allowed. None of it. You only allow for recreational boating and related accessory uses
I know why the
without knowing
question's
what they
right.
are.
Exactly.
You can't have a restaurant if you were to put marine district under your definition. You can't have a store. Period.
Oh, gosh, that does
Yeah,
flash
you
back
have
to the
to
public
define-
CPD.
if that is
was
what
all that
you're-
conversation.
Mhm.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And
Yeah.
your vision
Mm.
is to be allowed for those restaurants or for, big or small, whatever. You can always regulate it, know your code and size and typology, or you want those stores. This isn't gonna fly. You have to say commercial and then in your code, when you establish that district, say these are the type of commercial uses that we are going to allow.
I'm all for flexibility, and whether it's 0 or whatever, I mean, if they still have an avenue to be able to go forth and ask for it, like Moss Marine
Yeah.
did, I
You
think
can-
that was the encouragement that I remember through all the meetings over the years, is to allow the uses that you just said, where they want to have a liquor store, they want to have a restaurant, they want to have a
Yeah.
ice cream shop.
And remember, portion of your code can be written as uses by right and uses by condition. The conditional uses always come back to you at that point. And that's a very important distinction here. You allow for the general aspect within your comprehensive plan. Within your code, you say, this is what's by right. I want to have restaurants by right. But hey, if I want to restrict the amount of convenience stores that we have in the Marina District,
Yeah.
I'm going to make that a conditional use.
So, but if we want to keep the folks we have, because they know us, we know them, we want them to be economically viable, and the complexity of what services and products need to be in that locale for that to work. Saying 0 is very clear. We're telling you, once again, do not try this. Now you can. When you say 0, it's a much different impact than leaving ambiguous to not restrict it specifically, but it's allowed if you want to come and talk about it. I just have a real problem with taking the marketing aspect of how wonderful those services are and how precious we need them. And they aren't building any more of them around anywhere, just because of all the reasons we all know. I just think this makes it a lot less attractive.
So are you
Turn it
saying we
in.
should just eliminate the N0 dwelling units per acre and leave it at 1.5 FAR?
I
But
could
that
do that, or I
is-
could do 6 an acre, back to what Jane was talking about, which limits it by design. I'm not,
If you have a period after FAR, you've implied that it's 0,
that's where I'm at, yeah.
Mhm.
because there's no accommodation.
Yeah. Can't stretch it. It's the same thing as putting 0 in them.
Mm.
I think,
Let
and
me
I think
add,
it would,
too, why do we have the word continue? Marine district shall be limited to 1.5 FAR. Why do? Well, we didn't have a marine district before. did we? So
I guess
why
I
do we
would
say
broke-
Continue.
I would broker putting something in there that we're comfortable with, even if it's not saying 0, but the allowability of it. And we're going to get some public impact. I understand the density concern. This just seems to be consistent with the reality of the things that people really want to exist and have access to. And if some density is a consequence for that versus the absence of it in total, isn't that a trade-off? We should let the public give us some feedback on that between now and council.
This could definitely be one where I think people would be okay
Yeah.
adding a little density because of what they're going to get.
Remember, it's not by
Or
right.
keep,
Yeah.
or keep.
It's not
yes.
by right.
It's not by right.
Exactly.
And he
it's
just
not by
talked about
right.
all the other things that you can put in your code. Conditional use at
Yeah,
certain
whether you have
thresholds.
0 or you have 1 or you have 6, they're gonna have to come in and ask for it.
Right, whether it's through rezoning or conditional use or whatever, there's another process to do that, yes. We just want you to have the number. So whether it's 0 or 6 or 2 or
I think
half.
if consistency is what everybody's concerned with, that makes the most sense to me, but
I think that's
you know,
Let's see what reaction we get because it's very specific and I think valuable right here.
And it's
And I think-
specific to 2 locations.
So what was
And
the
ones
number?
we want to keep.
Well, we want to keep a marina,
Yeah,
right?
right,
We
right.
want to have a marina. We already lost one and I think that's.
What was that
hard,
number?
I think.
I'm sorry, I missed.
Good guy thinks let's move on.
Okay.
I'm worried about losing marinas.
Fair
a few
enough.
words, but always
What was the number? 0?
No,
6?
Six.
Okay. I'm gonna type that in and save it.
Eddie, I think that's the most excited I've seen you in 5 years.
Yeah. He's like, I'm typing that in right now before
You're
some
getting
change
into
their
this, Eddie.
mind.
I think he always is excited.
Oh, no, that face, he was running to that computer faster than Usain Bolt.
John King, let's get this moving.
I mean, we are on page 17.
Mhm.
At this rate, Thanksgiving's off.
Yes. All right. Everybody good on Marina now? We can move forward?
Yes.
All right.
I didn't think it was going to be that. Take a break.
I think if you got it, I think just, yeah.
Okay, we'll give you a pass.
Just keep moving.
Let me just say something about recreation and open space. Here's the overriding concern about that, is that instead of recreation and or what folks are concerned about this category is that it doesn't say critical wildlife area, or it doesn't, in other words, these are all areas that should be protected. And the idea of recreation doesn't necessarily imply protection.
I think this is where, one, you look to the conservation element,
Mhm.
which does have to cover certain things by statute. And you have anything like, for example, sea turtle nesting, terns, in other places, gophers, bass, so forth, that do during SDOT review. Those are in the conservation element and were checked by the, DEP on their policy review, why we got comments to just make changes were included. Here, recreation and open space, you have a separation within your land use category between recreation, open space, and wetlands. Now, if you recall, we have strongly recommended and provided full text before on changing your wetland to a conservation land use category.
Mhm.
You all had to remove that. So those protections that were there and in the conservation portion, separate from your old recreation space with how other communities do it, we provided that to you in our original recommendation, and we were told to take it out.
The conservation section, you were
Yeah.
told to take it.
So we gave
I don't
you a
remember that.
conservation land use category that was to replace the wetlands, because in our argument at the time, it was broader and accomplished what we were hearing from the community.
Mhm.
We were told to take it out.
Well, again, and remember, that was the original discussions were before Ian. So land situation was much different then than it is now. And I remember a little bit about the wetlands conversation, and it was about a specific property that was
Oh,
up behind the old town hall.
One
There were, and that's, I think, where the discussion was. Again, that was
Right.
pre-storm, so.
But our recommendation was to look at that property separately, but not deal with the fact that you should be changing and updating your categorical land use so that you could apply differently at the time. That was the discussion then. Now, in the absence of the conservation, we didn't we rolled the dice on it with the first reading with the state because our argument back here at the time was the state may object to you not having a conservation as a category, but they may also look at the fact that you begin your wetland item as conservation district, and they view that as your conservation district. By which, do I still think, and as a professional, believe that if you were to make it a conservation land use, it would have been more effective? Absolutely. That's the solid standard advice that I had given to other communities and which I had provided to you guys early on.
But I think it's safe
But-
to say, I think your concern was that the recreation and open space is separate from the wetland, or if it gets changed to conservation
Yes.
district. They're two separate things. One doesn't override the other.
Yes, it doesn't override the other, and you want to be able to use your park space a certain way, and you want to use your conservation land with even more stringent. That's why you generally maintain different categories so that you have that legal backing to make it more stringent and to separate that from, say, a tot lot or like something at like Bay Oaks, right, recreation center. That's recreation open space. You're going to our little offshore island here where we want to maintain that as wetland to conservation. That's completely different. You want to lower those regulations to the point where the only thing you probably have that's built is maybe a pathway that's non-intrusive to native wildlife and protecting animals and so forth. But you're not going to build it like Bay Oaks.
So do you feel comfortable with the rec and open space part of it now that he's described? I mean, it sounds like we're gonna have some more discussion on the wetland conservation side of it.
Yep.
Is there any other concerns with the recreation and open space as it's written?
I had a question, excuse me, where it says additional accretions of beach, whether by natural causes or through beach renourishment. And then we've got a strike. To me, that's an
I agree.
incomplete
I was just going to
sentence.
say that before you did.
And I don't know what the objection would be to having that new sand automatically become part of the category. To me, it seems,
So
why
you-
would it strike? Yeah.
You technically can't. I went through this a couple years ago because the same language, similar language was in the code. You can't have a self-amending plan. But what it does is it equates back to conservation elements and stuff where it says we need to monitor and evaluate and continually do studies to see where those lines are, right? So you technically can't have next month we update it and it's got a different line. We're supposed to go through the amendment process. But we use that as data to support that amendment. It gets a little tricky with the legal side of it to do that. I take this language as being we need to evaluate and monitor and continually update as necessary.
I guess I don't get that from additional accretions of beach, whether by natural causes or through beach renourishment. That's just a sentence. What does that mean?
So Jason, you need to either add what you just said or strike out the whole sentence.
Right. Yeah, I think that portion shouldn't be deleted. We'll automatically assign it a category. Yeah, we just not delete that portion. Yeah.
Right, I think if
Either
we can't,
or,
if it can't be self-amending, then change it to what Jason recommended.
So essentially replacing the part that's struck out because it
With-
can't be self-amending. We'll be evaluated through
Will be
studies.
evaluated.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing it up, John.
You got that changed? All right. Then we'll move on to the wetlands.
Can I jump in for a
Yes.
minute? So the recreation and open space designation provides for public parks, schools. Then there is a separate section on schools. And I guess when we get to there, I just want to make sure there's compatibility between
Consistency,
those
yeah.
sections.
All right.
All right.
Wetlands. So you think wetlands should be, the name wetland should be changed to the conservation district or conservation category, or?
We have recommended that you change the designation from wetland to conservation just because it encompasses a wider area.
It does, because
And-
conservation would encompass wetlands.
Right,
Wetlands too specific.
right.
Yeah,
You
I
have
agree
more
with
than wetlands here.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Wetlands has a specific definition
It does.
legally. And then, and then why the conservation district applied to all remaining wetlands? I don't understand what that says.
Well, you'd have to rewrite that if you change the name.
Right.
Yes.
There were other things that we had put in there as well with the name change.
What
And
was it?
What we had recommended that you do certain things about restoration. Well, it's already here, restoration of degraded habitat, but we were suggesting adding aspect of like protected species and other items that I normally do in like a review, like for example, if you compare to Key West, where I was evaluating the old Hawk missile site and its utilization for recreational area, with former land that was occupied by the Navy and given to Key West. We went through some very specific criteria in that evaluation of whether or not you could put a private park there or a public park there. Regulations about what facilities you can put on there were restricted. Of course, that city was also subject to a federal lawsuit on protected species, so we had to incorporate that aspect. We won't have that here, but generally we wanted to have some aspect of like consideration for species protection, water management, things like that
I
as
think that's so
consideration.
important.
Not necessarily absolute, but shouldn't be missing.
Mhm. It shouldn't be missing, and it is missing.
It is. So we have provided that recommendation before. We were told to revert it completely during that conversation. This is where we are right now. I'm happy to take further instruction on whether we keep it as is or we make certain changes moving forward from Monday.
Can we recommend that you all look at that language again?
Yeah,
on
I'd say
Monday?
bring it back. I mean,
Yeah.
again, that discussions were happened before the land changed.
All right. So we,
And I don't think anybody, I certainly don't remember, maybe Jim does, but what the language was
right.
back then.
All right. We will try to find a language and I'll see if there's any update and also bring it back up Monday. I have it in my note to make sure it's a specific point of discussion to bring back up for the council. In the meantime, if anyone has specific aspect that they recall or would like to make sure we address, particularly protected species and so forth, if you can get that to staff like today, because Thanksgiving is Thursday
At this
and
pace, it might be tomorrow.
right tomorrow.
No,
Yeah, so
it's a lot
I
of this.
apologize, but I would like to not work on Thanksgiving
No,
if it's
you shouldn't
possible.
work on Thanksgiving.
Not all day anyway.
I
I agree
I'll-
with everything that's been said.
Still football.
Well,
What's
I
that?
need my football. So
There are incredible protections built in for conservation later
in the conservation element.
in the
yes.
conservation
Yes.
element.
Yes.
So let's make sure that we
They mix
address
together.
it, get it captured, but not
Yeah.
duplicate it.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, great. Great.
Yeah, I think just a general reference to the
Yep.
more specific
Right.
outlays.
We would probably take tidal water and take portions of that into conservation.
Yep.
Moving the next one, that's all right, because
Nope,
they
that
are,
makes sense.
anything that, tidal, estuarial,
Mm-hmm.
in nature should be considered very, very specifically in your land use and comprehensive plan. You might, you still treat beaches differently as you saw in the open space before, just because of, the accretion and the restoration, especially in light of SB 1622 this past year, and how the state judges when you restore things who had ownership and all that stuff. But you keep the conservation portion separate, and that can go back into a different category.
Eddie, could you email all of us with your suggested change in case there's any of us want to make comments at the
Public comment,
meeting
yeah.
on Monday?
Say that again. Email you
Just what Eddie's talking about, going to conservation and
Yeah. We'll try to get that out tomorrow if possible.
Okay.
I still have to travel after we leave. I leave here, so let's see what hour I get back
thank
home.
you. Thank you.
They
Thank you.
just move over here.
Okay.
All right. The FLU 1B3 platted overlay, just basically
Yeah.
rewording everything.
Yeah.
No issues with that?
Nope.
All right. 1B4, land use types. Does anybody have any issues with the strike throughs and additions?
I did with residential, but in Marina, but now I don't, so, okay.
Perfect.
Well, you've got RV parks in here again, so
Yep.
you're gonna have to
Undo
Right.
mobile homes.
undo that.
Right.
Exactly. Right.
All right, we'll move on to 1B5, public facilities.
Mayor, I'm sorry
Yeah.
if I
Oh,
might
yeah,
interrupt.
go ahead.
Would we need to add anything about the ADUs in the residential use, or is that not appropriate?
Add what? I'm sorry?
ADUs?
I-
The
ADU.
accessory dwelling units?
Yeah. I would suggest change it to here. First is just use ADUs, accessory dwelling units, if you're gonna keep those, but delete the word for commercial structures. And then on the third one, where it says
Oh, there-
marina uses and then had residential right underneath it, to delete that word residential.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Is there any need to look at recreational uses because it's a very short definition? Just for compatibility, if you want to just check the box, make sure it's
Yeah.
okay.
I think similar uses with the kind of the catch-all there. I would say that the definition hadn't changed, but I would actually consider that you might want to consider indoor recreation as part of it. That isn't before, because when you're in a community that doesn't have that land space, you have to think about that verticality or indoor recreational space, and you already have that at Bayo, but that's part of a park, and so that how you want to move that forward. Similar uses does technically cover that, so there's
Yeah.
necessarily a need to
Mhm.
say it, but at the same time, if that's the specific direction you might want to go, it doesn't hurt to specifically note that, given you're on a barrier island with no more space to expand.
I like saying it because
Okay.
then if it comes up, it's not an issue because it's stated.
So you want to add indoor recreation to this? Is
Yeah,
that what-
just to the list.
just
And
to the
then,
list of-
and similar uses.
Okay,
So we've already defined from a policy that indoor recreation is a similar use.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. Anybody have any objection?
Move on.
And we're walking.
We're walking.
All right, public facilities, any changes or concerns with the scratch throughs or additions to that? None? All right. 1B6, schools. There's some crossouts and some additions. Nancy, I know you had some,
Yeah,
concerns with
well,
this one.
now that we are changing some of the category names, clearly that needs to be consistent. But it's almost as if you cannot have it in the recreation and open space district, yet in that prior district, we did list schools. That was the issue that I had. And then being compliant with the flood and then exempting the Beach Elementary School, I thought was a little interesting. I don't know the reasoning behind that.
I think we were asked to add.
you're referring to where it says except for wetlands and recreation and open space?
Yes, because it's
Yeah,
saying
it
that
doesn't
you
make
can
sense.
have it in those categories, but then you cannot have it in wetlands and mostly in recreation open space, yet it is listed schools.
Yeah, that should be, the second portion should be deleted, I think.
Yeah, the wetlands obviously make sense, but after that.
Well, it would now be conservation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
I would, thank you, Madam Attorney. I would suggest that I know we probably got here on this because we were asked to make a change at one point.
Yeah.
And we didn't.
So
yeah.
maybe one way to keep moving, keep walking is how does council feel about where do you want your schools? I mean, it's broad already. Do you want them to be in the new conservation district or future land use category as well. That would probably encompass the wetlands and recreation and open space, and then maybe take it out of the list in recreation and open space. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions.
Jim's saying
I'm
something.
seeing some inconsistency.
Jim?
Nancy, hi, thank you. This is Jim. Just a quick question, Nancy. Is there any language that we can put in our comp plan regarding the school that would advantage us in our mediation/legal dispute with the school district?
I'm really not in a position to give you an opinion on that, Jim.
Try Jimmy.
But I think regardless of if it is the Beach Elementary School or any other school, we need to know within the comprehensive plan what categories the town would like to have them located in.
Yeah.
So we know.
Oh, I guess couldn't, to make it easy, the one place you probably wouldn't want to put it is in a wetlands or conservation area. Everywhere else on the island, it's a school. To me, would make sense to fit anywhere else on the island besides the
pay for it,
conservation
they'll
of
build it.
wetlands.
Yeah, I mean,
So
20 years
it's-
from now, they might want to build a high school. And,
Right.
so you just let them build it. in
Why
wetlands.
constrict yourself to put it
Okay, so it would just pretty much be except for conservation.
conservation?
Okay.
I'm fine with
That makes sense because your original text allowed for everything but wetland. So if you delete the and recreation and open space on the third line,
Mhm.
then you're not making things more restrictive.
Okay.
And that's what's that's the overriding rule here.
It's the overriding rule.
Always one of those.
But what about the rest of that, provided that the school is
Not
not
seaward.
seaward
Well,
of the,
it couldn't be.
You could, right?
it can't be.
Right, but you already
Could
don't
it?
allow that. It's
I guess
not and
if
never,
it's-
not and never. It's really the same thing in this context. So that's not going to change. That doesn't change anything. Now, the compliant with flood and order regulation that's established by the Land Development Code, about that is that's up in the air, right?
I think
missed what
it's
you said.
kind of a given that it has to be compliant with our flood regulations.
Right.
However, by having it there, it is indication that you are very vigilant about making sure that any type of development is consistent with your flood regulations.
Right. So
No, we don't.
Yeah.
what will we do?
There's probably another section on flood as well,
Yeah.
correct?
I think the
Yeah.
issue, if I may, is that it's exempting Beach Elementary
The
as a
historic
historic
building.
building that is not above flood. That's, I believe,
Right.
what is being, it's to highlight that Beach Elementary in its existing form is okay with us.
With us. Yes, with us.
Which it is.
With us.
Which it is, right? So,
May I ask something of the council here? Just to make it a little bit easier when we submit to the state, can we say, and continue to be compliant, since you already require it, but if without those words, they may deem it as in violation of SB 180 when that's not actually the case. It's just something that you already require, but I'm just making that
I
recommendation.
think it's to me, that's an easy amendment. If you feel that's important, it doesn't
Okay.
really change anything.
And continue to be, okay.
Well, you guys are the experts, you know.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking through what the state review is gonna be like, and it hasn't been easier. Right.
Perfect.
So to John's point here, I think, does this hinder us in any way with their existing historical building that is in the zone that it's in? It doesn't restrict being able to potentially rebuild that, or because it still has to be compliant with all rules and regulations.
Well, yes, yes. So. Yeah, I'll just say yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes, but it
That's
doesn't.
got to be the shortest answer you've ever given.
I can read the face.
was till
I can
we
read
asked
the
another
room.
question.
Read the room.
There's nuances to it, and so
Yeah.
the answer is yes. They have to be
Okay.
compliant with regulations. Period.
So should you take that sentence out? Because it's
Which-
saying it's exempting, the historic beach elementary school shall be exempted.
No, because there's exemption regulations that are in place under state and local and federal laws, and you're allowed to adopt
Okay.
certain things locally.
All right.
So
I understand.
that's the nuance of
Got it.
over 50, under 50, historic. So you're
Okay.
calling it historic, and we're recognizing that.
All right. 1C, there's nothing that's changed there. 1C1, legal effect, that nothing changed there. 1C2, commercial intensity. Are there any comments or concerns on
I'm sorry,
this?
Mayor,
Yes.
Once again, I had a note here, and I'm not sure if it was just my copy. I had a note that I didn't see chapter 15.
On legal effect, back to
On legal
1C1.
effect, yes. Chapter 15 of this plan.
Yes, because there's only 13.
And so for some reason, I
Yeah.
didn't think I had a 15.
Yeah.
Eddie, on,
It said- should
under,
say
under
13,
legal
yeah.
effect, it says, at the very last sentence says, chapter
right.
15 of this plan, but there is no chapter 15.
I think we just, I think that was part of it, the old plan that we just need to go in and delete
Yep.
that sentence.
So you're going to delete that entire sentence?
Fusion by design.
There's a lot of cross references in your original plan that are
Yeah.
not needed.
Understood.
Thank you for that. Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good catch. Commercial intensity. Any comments or questions, concerns?
Yeah, I had some notes. I'm keeping some of this. Let's see.
Nope.
When we talked about keeping some of
I think we just added the FAR to it is what it essentially, height and FAR.
Yes, but overall, it's just,
It's
it's
still
keeping
okay.
everything the same.
Gotcha.
Right. And instead of duplicating it in
Yeah.
different places, we put it back in the category where it belongs so that
It's
if
a
you change it in one
consolidation.
area at some point, you don't accidentally forget to change it in another area, which happens quite often.
That makes sense. All right, we'll move on to 1C3, commercial locations. Is there any comments, questions, concerns on that one? No? All right. 1C4, building heights.
Easy one.
No, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yes,
I
yes.
Flipped. I'm a little slower.
No, that's okay.
The boulevard.
Okay,
4.
yeah.
Proposals must be sensitive to nearby residential uses, contribute to the public realm as described in the comprehensive plan, and meet design concepts of this plan and the land development code.
What is your,
I had some notes here from some discussions with folks about looking for some stronger language, and I can't seem to remember what they were. That they- or
page 20.
Perhaps that they,
page 20, number 4, Boulevard?
just give me a second to see if I can figure out.
I don't have anything on that.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
So are you,
Take that back.
well, again, this goes back to kind of like the other one where it says they are permissible. And then could there be confusion to, how does that fit into the interpretation of the second line that
That perhaps could have been why.
Rebecca read?
It's
So
not.
again, should that be maybe permissible or something? Because I think
Well, we were reading it
I mean,
that your project has to
still has to
be-
come back.
Well, it has to consider those things, proximity to the residential. It must be considerate of the neighbors. That's the way I read the sentence. But
Right,
this
what
goes
I'm
back to that
getting at,
boulevard.
if I'm a developer and I come in and I've got my land use person up there, I'm going to point out the first sentence. I'm not going to say anything about the other sentence. I'm going to say it says they are permissible. And then there's going to be the argument about, well, it needs to take into consideration. And now we're back to where,
I know. We, by the state law, you have to define uses within a category. I think that's why we have a tendency to say that.
okay,
However you want to word it. This really goes back to that boulevard conversation and the zoning, and there's other ways to mitigate uses adjacent to residential through landscaping, lighting, all those other things, rather than just real restrict use.
That makes sense, Jason. Learning curve on that.
Yep. So as you redevelop or whatever, additional buffers can buy you more intense uses because you're doing things to mitigate it. Sound, air, light, all that.
So let's move on to height. So the height, the big question that's raised is changing 2 to 3 stories, even though the 30 feet has not changed. And it seems to me that that's just a clarification of how it's measured, but it may not be. The real question here is, are we increasing height?
It's
So no, if you measure by the raw number, the issue was the town's policies or codes have regulated both stories and height.
Right.
And if you read that 2 stories and 30 feet, that's 15 feet per story, but you're also limited in your height per story, right? So there's several places in the plan and in the codes where it's, I'll call it falsely restricting. It's saying you can do something, but you really can't ever achieve that. So
What's it called?
falsely, so it's promising, it's saying you can do something, but you really can't. And so
I like
you can get 3 stories within 30 feet. And if you can design it that way, then if height is what you're worried about, then let's focus on the 30 feet.
So 30 feet that's it, right? Okay.
Yeah, I've
That's-
always wondered why you have to put stories in there. I mean,
It's an architectural appearance thing.
If your height is your height.
It's a tool.
30 feet above flood.
It's all throughout your code too. So it's just, it's always referred to both.
So you're suggesting to keep it as both stories and?
That's up to you guys, but it's traditionally you focused on both because the appearance of windows stacking on top of each other, right? It's an aesthetic thing versus total height.
I mean, to me, the height's the height, right? That's what everybody seems to have the issue with. If you've got 3 8-foot ceilings in there versus 2 15-foot ceilings, at the end of the day, does it?
Not gonna know that from the outside.
So you're basically saying up to 30 feet.
Right.
Well, I think you need, I think you're fighting yourself when you're trying to say 3 stories, or, I mean, to me, that just adds more confusion that doesn't need to be there, but I'm.
Yeah, I think 30 feet implies 3 10-foot stories, more or less. But you could just say 30 feet.
Yeah, you're not gonna get 4 in there.
It takes away the arguments that we've been having is, do you actually count the initial story of flood proofing in?
Well, the height doesn't start until from there anyway, from
Right.
BFE anyway, so.
1 foot above.
Right, but you're below, to your point, you're at grade is a story.
Mhm,
Right.
So
mhm.
Well, yeah,
That's
to
why
me,
the 2 to
getting rid of
3
the
came-
stories makes the
That's-
most sense.
That's
Just-
why it's it's been confusing, I think, to many of us.
Yeah, because now they have to say, we're technically 4 stories because you're counting this as a story.
Exactly.
So should we eliminate stories?
I think,
I would vote yes.
I think just having it
It's clear.
based on the overall height
Here.
keeps it clean and.
Yeah. I do too. But also, let me ask about the definition of flood elevation, because there's the FEMA elevation, there's the FDEP elevation, there's the design flood elevation, depending on where you are. Does that need more definition, the word flood elevation?
Jason, did you get that?
yeah, that's what we're
You should say above design flood elevation.
Does that include freeboard?
Yeah,
No.
because when you say design flood elevation, then that's freeboard and some of the other nuances.
I thought we made some changes in the land development code where you could get a little bit more based on if you go maximum freeboard versus 1 foot over freeboard. Did we ever make those changes? I know.
No, your current code allows up to 3 feet of freeboard to not count towards height. You start
Yeah,
the
so
height
if you
after,
wanted
if
to
you
go-
use it. If you use it.
If you want to
So-
go taller, you could.
Yeah, so if you
you
wanted
use
to go
2 feet,
taller, it doesn't count
it-
against it.
Right. Yeah, let me get back to on that. I don't want to over define it because we do have different DFE, BFEs. You have DEP regulations and height that supersede FEMA flood regulations.
And by eliminating.
Building
the-
code has a different definition.
That
So
makes sense. By eliminating the stories conversation, would that potentially eliminate the requirement to have more deviations? If someone comes in and says 3 stories, we're meeting the height, but because it's 3 stories, we are technically 4. We have to have a deviation request now because it's,
Yeah.
your code says would it eliminate some of that? Because it seems like everything that's coming forward is have to ask for a deviation because of the stories
Right.
context versus the overall height context.
Not immediately because it's still in your code. in your
Right,
development
but
code.
eventually it
But
will,
yes,
it will
we could-
eliminate
Within 12
that.
months.
Correct. Within 12 months, yes. Yep.
I'm in favor of eliminating the story. It just, if the height calculates that.
So
What do you
let's
think?
leave the flood term there now, and I'll
Mhm.
by tomorrow or Monday we'll determine
Better
what that should be.
defined.
I'd rather it be more broad and then further defined by these other studies and documents that we're required to meet. But let me get back to you on that one.
Doug, are you and Jim okay with?
Say above, minimum or design or maximum or something flood elevation, but maybe it's okay like it is. But flood elevation, as was mentioned, there's a number of definitions of what the flood elevation is, depending on jurisdiction, who's looking at it, whether it includes freeboard or does not include freeboard, whether it's in the B zone or not in the B zone, wave action zone, all that stuff.
So another section of discontent was the town may consider taller building heights in the mixed residential or in the mixed use districts if appropriate. But what does that mean? Yes, if appropriate.
What's appropriate?
Exactly, what's appropriate?
It's not.
I don't like this section, just FYI.
Yeah, because then it says to limit heights or provide for additional buffers, but it doesn't really.
When
No,
the
no.
development is within 100 feet of a detached single-family residence. I mean, where is there not a resident within 100 feet?
It's just the whole notion of you may consider taller building heights in the mixed use districts if appropriate. But what's the if appropriate part? I don't know why we've included this.
Because you look at that almost every month with applications. So it's the flexibility of your decision making.
But does it need to be in there then? Does it need to be codified if we're doing it anyway?
I think so, because
Okay.
the very beginning, your very first sentence is setting up that benchmark limitation at 30 feet. If appropriate, could refer back to perhaps a development agreement.
I see what you're
But
saying.
it's subjective. The word
Totally.
appropriate is subjective.
Totally.
Correct.
And
And are
I
we
think what we're
encouraging
trying to do
is
is
be,
make policy statements that are enforceable.
Mhm.
I'm with Jim. That one, not this one.
Within 100 foot
Not a unique feeling to me.
of a detached single-family residence, I think that will come up in every case.
Yes, but that only refers to the additional buffers.
but
What-
if you do draw that limitation at 30, we could have some SB 180 issues because now you've capped it.
I don't
But
think
it's
anybody's
30
saying
now.
that. I think they're just trying to figure out, is there a better way to say if appropriate? Is there a better way to word that where it's
Just
less
take that
interpretive?
word out.
Just get rid of if appropriate.
Just take it out.
Period. One of those periods right there. And it is what it
You
is.
know,
anyway.
it's almost like I would want to
But then
think
you're,
in my, like, the town, you know, under certain conditions, the town may consider taller building heights. Period.
Period work for you, Anita?
Yes, I don't know why we need this here. This is an addition and I don't know why we're adding it. And Jason's saying it's because you all are dealing with it all the time. And he's right, we are.
But you're going to
We
continue
are.
to because you have a process.
Correct.
That's why you deal with it.
That's right. So do we need this sentence in here?
I don't
Do we
think
need
we do, but
I don't either.
definitely not the
Well,
kind of think you do.
my concern is you say 30 feet.
Just to have a statement, otherwise you just defer back to the 30 feet. But this sentence, if you take out if appropriate and you don't put in some additional language, then these two sentences conflict.
What if we put in if or through development agreement? Because that's the only instance, right?
Not necessarily.
I don't know for a fact that that is the only instance. if otherwise provided in the land development code, maybe, or some of the language that, that Doug.
So
That's
it already
interesting.
says this, right? If you go back to the original language and see from the beginning, the 30 feet is being added because there was no height in this section. It was saying height shall be under certain conditions and be considered and blah, 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 right? So it's basically the same thing as what we're saying now, but we're defining it more in the mixed use centers, which is what you're seeing most applications for.
Yeah.
So I think it's just rewording it so that we can also add the 30 feet.
But
It already is undefined and will be as appropriate through the processes. That's essentially what it says currently.
But that's not, the town may consider taller buildings in mixed-use districts if appropriate. I mean, the town can always consider things. I don't see what that sentence adds.
Right. The
next
current,
sentence is fine.
Right.
But
But it
that sentence, we can always consider taller buildings, and I guess we'd have to make it so that it's appropriate. So what does that sentence say?
Nothing.
So your suggestion is to remove the entire first sentence
And
and just leave it as mixed use district regulations?
Okay.
It's not
And the
more
very,
restrictive.
no, well, under the very first sentence, it does say under most conditions. So there is some flexibility in those terms.
Right.
So, okay, I'm all right with that.
All right.
what was that?
So we're getting rid of the first sentence,
Leaving the
but
second
keeping
one.
the second one.
Our flexibility comes from the first sentence, okay?
Right.
Say that again. I'm sorry. Delete which one?
The first sentence,
The town may.
where it says
consider-
the town may consider taller building heights in the mixed use districts if appropriate. Eliminate that, but keep the sentence after it.
All right, so get rid of the sentence right here. The town may consider, okay, delete that one. And then.
So then again, following that, we have the 2-3-story height limit. Again.
Yeah.
Do we want to switch that to 30?
I think it needs to be consistent if that's going to be the change.
does.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna delete the first sentence, I would delete the second one too, because at that point, why have mixed use? Yeah, I mean, you're at
What-
30 story, you're a maximum at 3 story, at 30 feet, at 3 stories. So you stick this, at this point, if you're gonna limit provision further, you're looking at like 1 story. Where's the mix?
Where, what, I don't know what you're saying. I did-
Okay. So we can delete that.
Mixed use, I don't, I'm lost there.
So I'm lost with the concern. I missed part of that because I was trying to read. I'm sorry. That sentence that you want to delete is because.
Because we can always consider taller buildings in mixed use districts.
Based on
But-
what?
Based on our regulations, I mean, based on applications, based on,
Well, right, the policy is one. Your policy now says that, right? Currently, that language says we'll consider, it says it right there. Different heights may be applied to officially designated mixed use area, blah, 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 right? So
Right.
your current policy says we're going to consider those,
okay,
right? That's all this is trying to say is basically stating that same thing. I guess what any my concern would be if you eliminate that sentence or some version of that, are you not saying it? Are you not saying, you're not being definitive about other than the 30 feet? But the current policy says we'll evaluate that, consider in these mixed use districts. That's all we're trying to restate.
But I think what Nancy said was in that first sentence where we say, under most conditions.
That gives them some
That gives us the
flexibility.
flexibility.
Okay.
because it does say, and different heights may be applied to officially designated mixed use areas.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we want to
That
say
makes sense.
this is the height, but you may consider other things.
yes,
And
we
it-
do want to say
And I think it
that.
does say that by the, even
Okay.
with the elimination of that.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
With that sentence,
That makes
yes,
sense.
I would
That's-
agree.
Yes. So the first salt. I got you.
All right, cool.
Okay.
So we're
All right, let that part stay, that part go.
Yeah.
Okay, that got confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I thought you were also deleting different heights as well.
Nope.
So, okay, sorry. Thank you for the clarification.
We'll get there.
Thank you.
And the other changes where you say the 2-3-story height, we should put 30 feet instead of 2-3-story height.
They
That's
crossed
the
out,
next sentence
All
down,
3-story,
couple
yeah.
after the 100 foot detached, yeah.
So there's 30, yeah.
yeah, just get rid of 33-story and put 30 feet height limit again. You
Mhm.
just restate that.
And it doesn't look like we just gave everybody an extra floor.
So density, the FLU 1C5, nothing has changed.
Oh, no.
Oh,
We go
look
back.
at-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're still in the
Oh,
building
good.
heights.
Nice try, Nina. There we go.
I was trying to
Diversion.
go.
The last sentence of the paragraph.
Jim, you need to be on mic.
Jim, you got it.
The last sentence of this paragraph is really, I think, the gorilla in the room.
Oh, it is.
And it says that we're going to balance public benefits and height. But as a policy statement, I would think that we should make some statement on what public benefits are. Because without that, it's totally subjective and it's everybody's individual interpretation. So both Jim and I submitted earlier to the joint session we had, thoughts on public benefits. Now, my recommendation then was that public benefits should be perpetual,
I remember that.
and while not exclusively for public use, are intended primarily to benefit the public. And there was also had some discussion that complying with the town's code requirements would not be considered a public benefit.
Yep.
Oh,
So I think we should have some discussion on whether or not we need additional clarification to the last sentence.
My only concern with that, Jim, I agree with everything you said, is does it need to be codified in the comp plan? Because in here earlier, it talked about creating an ordinance, and these would be through that ordinance. It's still in the comp plan, but it's not specifically laying out.
And the
specific
comp
public-
plan has a different position in government than ordinances. Ordinances can be changed at any time. The comp plan is a whole different process, and it's our philosophy. It's not our
I see what you're saying.
implementation. The ordinance is to implement it.
So you'd like to strengthen it with words like perpetual, things like that, that you,
I
or
think
the
that-
discussions.
Yes.
Define public benefit a bit
Yeah.
more in the comp plan.
or remove it from the comp plan until
Well, if you
we,
remove it.
Yeah,
then-
yeah, I don't-
Yeah,
until we
that's
define the
fine.
public benefit and then amend it.
Now,
So,
Eddie, what do you-
I'm going to play devil's advocate for you all. Say you define public benefit and you define it broadly, you can go back and change it. But if you define it right now and say, you know what? Open space versus height is a public benefit, right? Like if you give me more open space, a plaza or workforce housing. What if you decide a community in the future that you don't want to, have that as a defined public benefit? Now, convention said that you have the ability to go back and change it through a comprehensive plan amendment, but you will always have the right to do to add or delete. But it is a more onerous process to go through. And sometimes, if we see right now with SB 180, once you put it in, you may not be able to take it out.
But if we're broad enough, I think that, the open space, a point system, a scale, a percentage, all of that would be in the ordinance, the way I would see it.
Agreed.
The ordinance is easier to be changed, and that's how it's implemented. But a statement about what a public benefit is, I don't see that as being restricted.
It depends on how you define what the public
Correct.
benefit is. If you take it to a certain point, then you are being prescriptive. If you don't take it to a certain point, then it really doesn't provide for what your intent is right here. So,
Eddie, react to his specific statement. Jim, read what we did with the,
What we discussed before?
Yeah.
All right. Public benefits shall be perpetual, and while not exclusively for public use, are intended primarily to benefit the public.
I think that is broad enough that you would be fine here to include that language. If you know, I don't think that would hurt.
Let me add, because Jim and I submitted these simultaneously, and I think this is consistent. What I had in my guiding principles on that, the document I authored was, it had 3 criteria: accessible to or for the benefit of all, unique in its nature or physical location, so you're not just duplicating, but you're enhancing, and a long-term or perpetual commitment. Those are the 3 guiding principles I had before I wrote the details.
We get, and I think we're going to see it again in December, that there's a big difference, at least in my mind, between a public benefit and an amenity.
Absolutely.
And with what London Bay has probably shown all of us now, they have a whole list of things that, to me, are all amenities. I don't see that any of these, or very few of that list, is really a public benefit. It benefits their development. Maybe there's some spillover benefit to the public, but it's not exclusive to the public.
And, you know, having done other public benefit ordinances, I can say that it sometimes, you're absolutely right, not an amenity, it's an effect. Ultimately, what it is about is the effect. The amenity can be part of the effect. Monetary aspect can be part of that effect. You know, if you have amenities like a trolley system, that's sometimes viewed as public benefit, but sometimes the public benefit is actually preservation of value to community because it's allowed to design a certain way. Preservation of viewpoint, a view shed may not be deemed as amenity by some folks, but it can be deemed a public benefit because you're maintaining a certain character by offering something in return. I think that what you have provided is at first glance pretty innocuous. It doesn't, but it doesn't really extend beyond to constrain. Madam Attorney, would you, on first read, would you agree, or? I don't think there's much there to constrain them.
Yeah, I would keep it as broad as possible.
Yeah.
What I did hear the word perpetual.
Yes.
So there may be some agreement on that specific word, adding that.
Perpetual and public, both of them had that in there.
Well, and not to confuse it even more, if you go before that, where it says particular attention would be paid to any permanent view corridors or the Gulf or Bay waters in exchange for, you're already saying that that's a public benefit in the comp plan. So if a developer comes in, which we have seen, they're going to say, it says right in your comp plan that I gave you a view corridor. It doesn't specify it.
You're right.
But that's considered a public benefit. So that whole section to me needs to be cleaned up. If we're going to change it, to me, that's basically saying if you do this, that's automatically a public benefit.
And I think we saw firsthand when they provided view corridors, it changed the construction of the buildings in a way we didn't like them. Now they got taller.
Right.
So that view corridor thing kind of diminished in my mind pretty quickly, taking the IBC in particular. They tried to comply with the public benefit as suggesting there and upwent the building. You know, the squish had to happen to get the same number of units back. So there's the unintended consequence of some of these things if they're not general.
Can I just bring one point to light, and that is everything that you're mentioning is great because it's giving guidelines.
Frankie, you got to move over by the mic.
It's giving guidelines for staff as we move forward and for you to make policy. But can we please constrain from naming out developments that haven't come before the LPA or council yet, as it might show prejudice in some way, fashion, or form? So those comments about any future development that may be coming before LPA probably should be stricken from the conversation and just keep it to what is a public benefit.
Good comment. Jim, can I ask you to read what you said one more time, but slowly? And as you go, I'd like to think we can say, sounds good, continue.
Which
sounds good.
Jim, the good one or the bad one?
I haven't figured out which the good one or the bad one is.
Because they sometimes they flip.
I'm going to say Jim Dunlap.
Yeah, Linda.
Because I liked all of that. I want to hear it piece by piece.
Sure. Number one, accessible to or for the benefit of all.
Good.
Unique in its nature or physical location.
Good.
That's
I
because
like
the South
physical
is-
location.
Because the South needs a restaurant.
Yes.
Third, a long-term or perpetual commitment.
like it.
Jim, you had something else that he did.
Yeah, there was something
Oh,
additional.
Well, what I had said was, public benefits are perpetual,
Covered.
but while not exclusively for public use, are intended primarily to benefit the public.
And are intended, if that could be added, and are intended for, yes.
And then the last part was, doesn't necessarily mean a policy statement, but complying with the town's code requirements is not a public benefit, which
That's
is
just
what
a
we're being
statement.
sold all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to get foundation planning,
Yeah.
and that's a benefit. Well, there's
Yep.
a 5 or a 10 yard setback, and you got to do landscaping anyway. So it's a code requirement. It's not a benefit.
It would be
Yeah.
helpful for
What do
you
you-
if they'd send you what they do.
Are you
I like
taking all
that
this in,
very
Eddie? You got
much.
any recommendations?
He's thinking.
And or. And or.
What do you mean?
Are all those that were just listed and or?
Are those and or? Is it all inclusive or are they individual?
Well, I think it's
I would
different.
say go with or.
I think they're ands. No, they're not ands.
You want to give it
Was that a trick question?
Yes, it was. But I want to make sure that we thought about it though, because you could
Okay.
and then you have to have matter other conditions. And if it's unique to place, you have public benefit types that are not necessarily unique to place that you may consider in the future. For example, workforce housing. And under the definition of provided, workforce housing may be, someone that privately might benefit, but it's still technically a public good because by taking that out of the pool, you have a collective effect on a community's ability to have affordability as a whole. And so
Can-
you make it too restrictive.
Can we
Yeah.
let's try to throw something out here to see if we could get closer to where it says particular attention could be paid to permanent viewing corridors. Would that be a good place to add particular attention will be paid to perpetual, however you want to see it, sustainable, incorporate what you both gyms have there. You're eliminating the permanent view corridors, but that still would be covered under perpetual or
Right.
potentially could be covered under
Absolutely.
perpetual. And try to get that sentence to keep it more broad versus specific to what is a view corridor or what is a, to me, a view corridor, that would be a perpetual thing, until another development potentially could come in. But
And
to
that could
try
be-
to stay within the guidelines of Senate bill, the Senate bill as
And
well.
that could be specified in the ordinance. That a view corridor is
Yep.
Sure.
a public benefit.
No objection there, no.
I think that makes great sense,
good idea.
especially because view corridors is the only public benefits that's called out in any of these.
In the comp,
in this
right.
document anywhere. So people are hanging their projects
But
on
that's,
that.
but that statement would be broad enough to include
Now,
that.
we would include it,
Right.
but it wouldn't be
But they can think
restrictive
of other
enough.
things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like that.
What do you
I think that's
Eddie?
the right place to put it.
Eddie has a perplexed look on his face.
I just think from that
At
particular
written,
to the
it
end
was
should be.
to have one particular item and be asked to compare it to other items that you may want. So it's not precluded in this case, and it just asks you to weigh. The last sentence says, in each case, the town shall balance the public benefit, the height limit against other public benefits that would result in the specific proposal. So it keeps it open for you to balance. But if you change it, then I wonder if the revised text would constrain you in a way that you may not intend.
It shouldn't, Eddie. I think if you were to leave the last sentence as is.
Right.
But make the comments that the gyms both brought up to where Dan suggested they be inserted. I think we actually are not focusing on view corridors and are giving some guidance as to public benefits are public and long-term and near perpetual and
Policies.
basically for the benefit of the public primarily.
And can change over the
We
years.
can capture those in that spot.
And could you take it even further by, let's say, perpetual, sustainable, or as laid out in the land development code? Because then that allows you however you change
Right.
land development code or policies and procedures in that, it's still covered under the comp plan.
See, the view corridor thing comes from, as you can see here, the original part of your comprehensive plan. It's not how I would written it.
Right. And that's what we're trying to address.
Yeah.
So would that perpetual, sustainable, whatever words you need to use there, encompass that? Maybe this is a Nancy question. Would that encompass that to be, it's not more restrictive, actually, it's more open as
Right.
opposed to what this says?
I agree. I don't think it's more restrictive. I think it gives more guidance
Right.
as to
No,
what
I agree
we're
with that.
looking for from a
What we
30,000
value.
foot
Right.
look.
I would actually strip out that entire portion there, starting with particular attention. Just strip that out from particular all the way to proposal. So you start from the bottom of page 12, the 6th line in after natural resource criteria. I would say your best approach then is to take everything to the out path to the word Gulf. So particular attention will be paid that enhance the view corridor to the Gulf. And then you say before that, the town may consider public benefit. We can use the text, provided, or just keep it simple and say the town may consider a variety of public benefit as defined as,
Perpetual,
Perpetual.
sustainable, whatever.
Exactly what it said, period, and then keep the last sentence. That I think that's how.
I think it needs to be more than just perpetual.
I would say my
Send
qualm
him
about
as a-
perpetual
Jim.
is that if that development goes away and something is out
Nothing is
there,
perpetual in life.
then what do you do about that perpetual aspect when it gets redeveloped, or if it gets redeveloped? That's a consideration you have to consider too. So maybe for the
Cross
lifetime of
that
that
bridge when you
development.
get to it.
Or you say for the, the lifetime of the, you have to tie it into the actual development order, which is how public benefit ordinance really are tied in anyway.
Yeah, perpetual's really tricky because I remember a certain development down there that there was a right of way that some guy gave it in
Perpetuity,
perpetuity.
And that's why I put long-term or perpetual in nature.
Gotcha.
Because
Okay.
people can buy 10-year commitments, if you will, do some stuff for the town for a decade. It gives you all kinds of,
Okay, I
choices.
see where you're coming from.
that's why I stuck in there.
Okay.
We haven't gotten there yet, but
I was trying to get there.
So what's it going to be?
Yeah, we got it. So you're saying just get rid of basically where it says particular all the way down to where it says golf, but leave the last sentence in? Is that what you're?
Leave the last
suggesting?
sentence in and add that definition that we had just described right before that sentence instead to define the public benefit, to give you that range. And then keep it to it that, keep that same portion of policy where it says the town will evaluate and balance, right? It's only you, by balancing it, you have to evaluate to figure out what you believe as a council the balance is, that give you the discretion while then maintaining the fact that, hey, this is, if it's a public benefit being proposed, you're going to evaluate it and go forth from there. It's a little bit more loose. It doesn't focus on the view corridor.
I'm sorry? Oh, Don? Oh, okay.
I have two. This one going the other way.
We're just going to reflect that Don Suddeth has stepped away for, did you say Jim?
Yep.
Don, John.
oh, for an hour, okay.
For an hour.
Mayor, after this item, it will be possible to take a
Break.
a lunch break. You may have seen me texting my sister with bleeding in the urgent care, so I need to take my lunch break to check in on her
Well, stop
really quickly.
now.
So
That's easy.
if we could, after we get this item, I apologize for being slightly
No,
distracted, but that,
Stop
yeah.
now, go tend to your
You know,
sister.
Yeah, we'll take care of
Tend
that.
to your sister.
All right, we'll take a break. What time is it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come back at 12:30.
Mayor,
Yes.
Nita, This is Doug Ekman. I will not be able to join you after.
Yeah, you just got it.
Okay.
Well, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving wherever in the world you are, Doug.
Dallas, Texas.
All right.
Thanks
It
so much.
was good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving.
you.
Happy Thanksgiving, Doug.
Well, we'll come back when he is able to come back.
I think that's the right answer.
I mean, if it's 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes. If it's 20 minutes. it's
I
20
sent around a
minutes.
copy of the
Oh.
things I read, so you all got those. If you want to steal from there. That's my
Yeah,
whole
okay.
document at the top I read.
I think we just used the top three.
I think that's right. More done with it.